where they are, which is that they are seen as that kind of free hit. But there's a really interesting piece by Chris Wheeler in the Mail just about how Manchester United normally sack their managers under Ed Woodward, which is just quote swift and brutal.
Right.
So basically, managers are given all kinds of assurances. Eerily reminiscent of what we've seen in recent days, where Woodward came out and defended Solskjaer. He's got my backing. The Glazers have said, no, we like Ollie. Ollie's a good guy. Really nice guy. He's likes doing things for the club. And then they just sack them.
There's any minute, Solskjaer could be walking, turns around, there's Woodward with a gun.
Well,
Ed, what are you doing?
Look the other way, Ollie.
Yeah, Ollie, I'm sorry, Ollie. It's... It could happen. We've got loads more. You touched on Newcastle. We're going to be going into detail on the Longstaff brothers as well today. And there's lots more as well, isn't there, today, that we're going to be touching upon? Did I go a step too far with the gun?
The imagery of Solskjaer there with a shovel. Like, hey, Ed, why are you making me do this?
Dig a big hole.
We're ruining the training pitch.
A little bit bigger, Ollie. Yeah. 6 foot. 6 foot's enough.
Anyway, right. I'm surprised we're allowed to talk about that this time in the morning. United's damning stats under Solskjaer. 17. United have 17 points in the last 17 league games, while Liverpool have 17 wins.
Yes.
So there's that, isn't there? 9 points from 8 games. It's their worst start for 30 years. United's 4-0 opening day win over Chelsea is the only time they have scored more than once in their last 16 competitions. Solskjaer's side have only scored twice since August. And Solskjaer has won just 5 of his 23 games since being appointed manager on a permanent basis on March 28th.
That's the one, that last one, since he's been appointed permanent manager. Because it's funny, you see all these stats, he's still got like a 47% win ratio, which isn't horrendous, not great by any means, but it's not horrendous, but it's more the fact that he had initially, obviously, those first 10 games, he won, 8 or 9? So, of course, you take that out of the equation, his win ratio is horrendous. Even at 47%, he is lower than the likes of Moyes, Van Gaal, and several others.
Lower than Ron Atkins.
Yeah, well, Big Ron was good for a period of time. I mean, he was quite a character, wasn't he?
Until the stuff happened.
We won't talk about that.
Until the stuff. Ron Atkinson is just above Solskjaer. 292 games Ron Atkinson had in charge of United. Decent effort, that. 50% win rate. Dave Sexton is underneath Ole Gunnar Solskjaer with 40.3%. So Ollie's sandwiched in between Ron Atkinson and Dave Sexton. The dream.
Go, indeed. What else are we going to be talking about on today's show? There's lots of interesting stories that are in the papers today, aren't there?
Yes, okay, so look, with a kind of lack of breaking news, what we decided to do is go more in depth with a couple of things. So there's a few stories going about today about football agents, Zaha being the main one, Wilfried Zaha. He's going to sue his agent over a failed transfer. A couple of other stories dotted about as well. But we're going to kind of link it in with what's going on with the Longstaff brothers, because obviously you have some involvement with Longstaff brothers, and they are both doing rather well for themselves, of course. Matty and Sean. Matty, of course, sunk Manchester United at the weekend. So we're going to talk about how their careers have been shaped expertly by agents and how they've been guided through the early years of their professional footballing career compared to other footballers. And so we're going to have a bit of a chat about the role of agents, and some good, some bad, of course. There's also a story coming out of athletics. I don't really want to let this Salazar stuff drop, because I think it is an even bigger deal than what we've been told so far, and I think that this is a story that's only going to, for want of a better phrase, run and run.
Well, Neil Black, UK Athletics Director, may quit. So he hailed Salazar a genius in 2017, and there's something on this in the Times, which we're going to touch on a bit more. But you're right, it's the impact it's having, and day by day there's more and more stories coming out and more people that are impacted.
Yeah, that's it. So, I mean, it's Neil Black is the UK Athletics Performance Director. Now, he is essentially maybe about to quit. Now, he has referred to Salazar as a genius, and we're going to branch this out a little bit because, you know, you've obviously had here a very, very wide-ranging doping scandal that goes right to the top and includes a major corporation in this case, that being Nike. But it's not been criticised, really, by Seb Coe, by Paula Radcliffe, by Steve Cram, these people who are institutions of certainly British athletics, and you would expect to be coming out and having a pop at this. So, yeah, in fact, the opposite has happened, actually, really. They've kind of buried their heads in the sand, and in fact, Salazar has been called a genius by Neil Black. So we're going to be talking all about that and just getting stuck in, really, because I think that's a topic that clearly World Athletics is doing his best to sweep under the carpet, and I don't really think we should let them.
Indeed, I agree. We're going to be talking about cricket as well. Chris Silverwood, England's fast bowling coach, has taken over from Trevor Bayliss as head coach. Your initial thoughts on that? We'll go into a little bit more detail on that.
Yeah, I mean, look, before he was appointed, I didn't know too much about him. He was somebody who wasn't ever kind of front and centre, really. But yeah, there are a few really nice pieces about him, profile pieces about him in the press. So we're going to be having a chat about that. I mean, he seems crucially like it's one of those internal appointments that actually I think most football clubs and most teams want, and it's obviously now happened with cricket. He knows the squad well, and he's got a good pedigree in their respect. So yeah, we'll have a chat about him in more detail as well.
Fantastic. We are, of course, joined by our producer, Kieran, who will be chipping in from time to time today as well. He might even introduce himself now. I can see him pulling the mic down, putting on the headset, pressing the little button which goes red, and here he is.
Hey, here he is.
There he
you
is.
talked that through beautifully.
Well,
just as every motion, we're in sync today, Rich.
I feel like we are. I've got a nice energy about today. There's a lot that we're going to get stuck into. Anything, Kieran, that you want to touch on before we do?
Yeah, well, I just want to kind of tease the listeners into. We're going to have a bit of a go at Gary Neville because
yes.
Martin Samuel has written a little piece on Gary Neville's inconsistency in the Mail. And he's talking about his punditry and how he's kind of jumped about. And he was praised so highly before he went to Valencia as manager for being the best pundit on the circuit. And I think most of us agree with that. But now he's become a bit of a scaremonger, a bit of a kind of headline hunter with what he's saying. And yeah, I don't believe anything he says. He doesn't feel genuine anymore.
Yeah, he's gone a bit shock jock, hasn't he? So for me, there's been a shift, and it's something that Martin Samuel, in my opinion, rightly points out, which is the hypocrisy around Gary Neville and the fact that, you know, he initially broke onto the scene, didn't he, as this insightful pundit who kind of revolutionised the way that we look at games, certainly from a televised sense, and he's gone to essentially waking up in the morning, deciding what it is that he could say that would get him in the papers, and then saying it. And there's a difference there, isn't there?
Is there a case of he almost gave everything he had very early on, and then it was almost, okay, what's the next level? I don't have another level, if you know what I mean. Because he's right, because initially he's come on and he is quite insightful. He's obviously got good knowledge from his time at United and working under Sir Alex Ferguson. Then he's got to a point where maybe he'd given everything that he's got, and so then what do? Do you reinvent yourself? Do you try and find ways to stoke up interest?
I don't know, really. It's a strange one, because I think that first and foremost he's there to kind of dissect games and give that insight, and that's something that he doesn't need to work on. Like, he does it very well, but his quotes and his comments and how over-emotional he is are coming back to bite him, really. So, for example, his latest one saying that Manchester United would be better off with Marouane Fellaini up front, with Lukaku and Alexis Sanchez, there's no doubt, comes after he said he's delighted that Lukaku's left and won't be happy until every single one of them is out the door. He's talked about renaming Old Trafford, which he doesn't mean. There's no way that Gary Neville wants to rename Old Trafford something like, I don't know, like the Bangkok Airlines Resort or something like that. There's no way.
We can actually hear from Gary Neville on that very subject.
I would sell the naming rights of Old Trafford if I was at Manchester United for 60, 70, 80 million a year. And invest every single penny of every. I would consult with fans whether they wanted it to happen, on the understanding that all of the money generated, that 800 million over 10 years, would mean that basically the whole of the Stretford end would be £10 or £12 to get in.
No, you don't. You don't mean that, Gary. There's no way you mean that. The Stretford end's full every week anyway. Yeah. It doesn't matter. There's no way on the face of this earth that you actually want to raffle off Old Trafford's name.
Yeah. No, I agree. And actually, from a point of it's going to be £10 for it, well, okay, it's like you say, it's already full. Yeah. So what, you're just going to reduce the people that are already happy to pay what they're paying, or certainly not happy, but they are paying what they're paying.
Yeah.
There's no sense in...
Doesn't make any sense.
No sense at all.
£800 million over the next 10 years or whatever. Right, okay, but what would you have been making just in normal ticket revenue?
I'm about to say, and to damage the brand to an extent, because it is Old Trafford. It's iconic. Yeah. Like, it's just the thoughtless... But this is where, okay, this is the one of many. We are going to go into more detail, because it is one of many, and this is kind of the issue where, I've got tons of issues when it comes to his goalkeeping punditry, where, again, it's the shock punditry. It's the, you can't mean that. If you've got eyes, you can't mean that.
But this is the thing as well, which is that, no, but it's not just Gary Neville as well. It's the general standard of punditry. Now, I actually think, Jamie, to be honest with you, it pains me to say it a bit, I actually think Jamie Carragher is better. I think you look at Graham Souness, isn't it? It's like, all right, now we're just going to go over and get Graham Souness's opinions on this game. Press pause on your TV, right? And then just insert some words like shocking, disappointing, embarrassing, terrible, wouldn't have happened in my day. Right, thank you very much, Graham. And then that's it, isn't it? That's you just get 50 shades of Graham.
It's funny because it's just like the exact conversation you and your girlfriend have in an evening, right?
Yeah. Disappointment, massive apology, normally some tears, and then you just crack on.
And then you just cry yourself to sleep.
In the spare room.
Yeah. And then we have a fun radio show in the
Oh,
morning.
we do. This is therapy.
Did you ever have that book where you had to fill in the blanks with like fun adjectives and make a really like crazy story based on the words you chose?
It's called Graduation: Life Lessons of a Professional Footballer. You can find it on Amazon for $9.99.
Whoa, what a plug at 6:43.
He's profiled that in.
Wow. Yeah, that's basically Gary Neville's punditry, isn't it? He just kind of concocts something in his mind. It's like Sherlock's Mind Palace, just slightly narrower.
But this is it, isn't it? Like we watch football now, and I think the general standard of football has improved massively, clearly over the last certainly 5 years, 10 years. But has the standard of punditry got any better? You've got Michael Owen there, who, I mean, you might as well just draw a face on a balloon and just shove it up there and just go, oh, Michael, so what do you make of that? Well, as you can see there, he's picked the ball up and he's run with it and he's kicked it and it's gone on the goal. Right, thank you very much, Michael. Cheers for that, then. Like Alan Shearer as well, looking like a shiny egg. Just sitting there opposite Gary Lineker, who offers precious little apart from massive ears and a kind of dubious moral compass when it comes to Walker's crisps. What's the point of listening to these people? Isn't it? We can do that.
You do make a good point. Well, look, we're going to be going into more depth on this. As always, you can let us know your thoughts on WhatsApp 0208 70 20 558. We're on the socials, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, at Love Sport Radio. Big show to come, 6:45.
This is Love Sport.
You all right, mate?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah? Really? It's just, there's a massive grizzly bear sitting on you. You sure you're okay?
Well, now that you mention it.
Sometimes we say we're fine when we're not. But with 1 in 4 experiencing a mental health problem, if your mate says he's fine, he might not be. Be in your mate's corner and ask twice. Time to change.
Don't get caught out in the great energy price hike as large firms look to charge you more. If you want to save money on your energy bills, it's not too late to see what's on the market. With rising gas and electricity bills, don't get caught out wasting your money on expensive tariffs. A spokesman said will show you the very best value deals available. Check out aspokesmansaid.com and you could be using your savings to put towards a well-earned holiday.
With aspokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
If you're in business, I bet you hate wasting money. We Do Taxi Tops can help you achieve minimum wastage on your advertising costs and maximum exposure. Our revolutionary taxi tops can target your potential customers in the right place at the right time, so your message has the greatest potential for making an impact. We Do Taxi Tops. Visit WEDOOH.com. We Do. The smarter, quicker way of advertising in London, supporting London businesses of all sizes.
Oh, it's okay. Let's face it, when your kids are ill, you'd do anything to help them feel better. But remember, antibiotics aren't always needed. You might not realise it, but taking antibiotics when you don't need them puts you and your family at risk of a longer and more severe illness. Help keep your family well. Always take your doctor's advice on antibiotics. Search NHS antibiotics. All better.
I am a god in Scotland. They've never seen anyone live to 70.
This is Love Sport.
Love Sport Breakfast, Love Sport Radio, me, Richard Lee, Patrick Christys. You know what time it is.
It's business. It's business time. I know what you're trying to say. You're trying to say it's time for business. It's business time. Ooh, it's business.
I've got really on that one.
Business time. We just keep it going.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, actually, we've got to interview Chris, haven't we?
Oh,
Chris, morning.
Good morning. Was that the 12-inch remix extended version or something?
That was the 12-inch indeed, Mr. Chris Bailey, founder of financialorbit.com. How are we this morning?
Very good, very good. Well, it's Tuesday, sort of getting light, not raining. Well, it could be worse.
Is it not raining today? That makes a change. It's been pretty bad.
BreakingNews.com, absolutely.
There you go. We'll bring you on for the weather as well. 2 and 1. Pizza Express is in the news today, I believe.
It is. Pizza Express, obviously, fine place to go and have a quite nice pizza. But, they've got a few problems. They've got 1.1 billion of debt. Where have we heard this go all wrong before? Their owners are kind of, worrying about it because they're not getting paid, etc., etc. Right old mess. So, fears about Pizza Express. Could it be disappearing from our high streets? That seems a bit of a radical thing to say. But in today's world, frankly, who knows? But, it comes back down to the point that, when you ask for the special there, you're probably going to get a pizza, or at least a pizza base with a whole load of debt on top.
Right, good. The debt pizza.
Not tasty, I would suggest. So there you go. I have to keep an eye on that. So not good.
I suppose if Pizza Express folds, then it'll just be Calzone Express, won't it? Cheers, guys. Thank you. See you in a bit.
Okay, he's off. Thankfully. Sorry about that, Chris. It's he's not a reflection of this radio station.
It's actually quite a highbrow joke, that is, because there's probably a few people around there thinking, what on earth is a calzone?
Whereas Patrick has a lot of knowledge about calzones. You only need to look at the guy. Super rich, renting London homes for £5,000 a week.
Well, talking about calzone eaters, yeah, absolutely. Super rich, they're always going to be here, aren't they? They lurk in a different parallel universe to the rest of us. Apparently, more of them are rocking over to London and renting homes at over a £5,000 a week price tag, which apparently is the sort of the cut-off point, as if you and I didn't already know, for where you move into sort of the super rich zone. So yeah, good news for them. In the real world, I see that house prices are at their lowest, showing their lowest increases since 2013, which perhaps gives a better reflection of where I would suggest the UK property market is.
I'd love for my name to be Super Rich. I'd love it if you referred to me as that.
Super rich.
Yeah, just that'd be so cool. Like instead of being a surd, being a super. Anyway, new no-deal Brexit to push UK debt to 50-year high.
Let's get back. We've got to have a little bit of Brexit at some point. A little bit of Brexit, just to keep us tiding over. Apparently, if yes, we have a no deal and other issues, then debt's going to go up. We're back to debt again, and the UK government's got lots of debt. And it is a very fair point that at the moment, if you sort of scrape below the surface and everything else, actually the government is spending a bundle of new money in order, absolutely nothing to do with the fact that there's potentially a new election coming up, and just because they feel like it. So this clever institute called the Institute of Fiscal Studies came up with these numbers which sort of suggested that if they continue spending like now, you mix in a bit of no-deal Brexit, then debt could go up to levels not seen for 50 years, which is all great, but I can tell you it's not going to work out like that because something will come in to change it. As always, it does.
Let's hope. As always, Chris, we do appreciate your time in the morning.
No problem. Have a good one.
Take care. Chris Bailey there, founder of Financial Orbit. That's crazy, isn't it? £5,000 a week people spending on their properties. I barely spend that a month.
Do you?
It's incredible, isn't it?
Really?
People spending that a week now.
Yeah. No. For what our listeners can't see here, because it's radio, is the rather smug look on Rich's face as he realises how wealthy he is.
Yeah. All good fun. But we are on YouTube, so if you want to see that smug look... Feel free. You can tune in and watch us.
Rich does a really good line in fake embarrassment. So his supercar will pull up outside the studio. He'll get out, and then he'll say something to him like, "Oh, nice car, mate." Like, oh, that whole thing. Oh no, yeah, no. Talk about it more. No. Anyway, classic Rich.
No, you know that I'm messing around, really. Although I'll tell you, someone who did enjoy a little bit of that type of banter was Robbie Savage. That was always a classic.
Go on.
Like, you'd ask him, what was it? You'd ask him what the time was. What was his classic line? Oh, it's a diamond past the something. But it was like, he said it so many times. It was kind of like his classic line.
Oh, no.
He loved it. Loved a bit of wealthy banter.
Yes, Robbie Savage is an interesting character, isn't he? That's fair to say.
He is. No, do you know what? And actually, a bit of a tangent. We're obviously going to get stuck into a bit of United in a minute, but he was misunderstood. I would say that. Like, actually being with him, he was someone that just wanted to be loved, you felt, but certainly big character around the dressing room. It was an interesting time. That way, Craig Bellamy there as well, of course, at Blackburn. Brad Friedel.
The same team.
It was an interesting dynamic. Craig Bellamy used to fly in on his helicopter from time to time when we had training. A couple of times late. We were actually training, and he landed on the pitch next to us.
In full kit?
No. He was not ready for training.
Right.
But he was brilliant that season. Anyway, let's move on. Should we talk a bit of United, or do you want to talk about something else?
Yeah, well, look, we'll just do a quick bit on United because it's all over the back pages today about Ole Gunnar Solskjaer fearing the sack. And It's a bit of a strange one, this, really, given that earlier on, well, I was going to say earlier on in the week, at the end of last week, anyway, Ed Woodward came out and gave a very public backing of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. We've heard rumours as recently as yesterday, actually. There were articles in the Daily Mail about how the Glazers are backing him and that he's here for this rebuild. But there's some interesting things coming out at the moment, which is that a heavy defeat by Liverpool could spell the end for the Manchester United boss. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer fears that he basically could be on the way out of the door. Solskjaer has described it as the perfect game, however, for United after the international break, following their worst start in 30 years. Now, you just wonder where all these stories are coming from, because he is on pretty much every single back paper today, and there aren't a huge amounts of quotes from Ole Gunnar Solskjaer in there. So the headline, Ole fears axe, and then you've got it on the back of the Sun as well. You'll get me sacked is what apparently Ole said to his players afterwards. Solskjaer fears Liverpool route could cost job. But then there's not really anything in there particularly where he's saying, I think I will be sacked if I lose to Liverpool. So it looks like he's coming from higher up, I think.
I think you might be right. In fact, Gary Neville, we're going to be talking quite a bit about him today. He gave this opinion last season about Solskjaer.
There's a big difference, by the way. Manchester United won't sack the manager after 3 or 4 months in a season like Chelsea would. They won't do that.
They did do it with Moyes.
No, they sacked him after 8 months. That's a particularly peculiar situation for Manchester United to do that. They won't do that with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer next season in November, which is what you said.
Interesting.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's Gary, isn't it?
So whether there's any thought behind that, we don't know. But, I mean, look, that could happen. We actually looked at the fixtures yesterday, and, of course, they've got 3 tough fixtures coming up, which Liverpool obviously being the main one, which that alone, you end up losing heavily to Liverpool. That could be that.
But this is it. So when Mourinho left, there was clearly a big dark cloud hanging over Manchester United, and it looked like players had stopped trying for him. And then you saw that Liverpool result when United lost against Liverpool and Mourinho was in charge. He was sacked, I think, the next day or the day after. And these stories coming out now. So if Ole Gunnar Solskjaer did look his players in the eye after that Newcastle defeat, 1-0 defeat to Newcastle over the weekend, apparently he's told them, you're going to get me the sack. Now, if you're a player, right, and, you know, your manager says that to you, does part of you think, well, we might lose next week then, you're off and we'll get a new manager in?
I'd be surprised if he said it, if I'm honest, because it's very... Look, most of the top managers, they take full responsibility, and they'll do that even in the dressing room. They'll know that they've got the players on side. And if the players aren't performing and you know they're good players, it has to come back to the manager. Now, I do feel for Ole Solskjaer because I think that the team that he's inherited, there was something majorly wrong there already. Yes, he had the good run initially, but you do feel like there's something at the core of that team that isn't quite right. The dynamic isn't right. The culture isn't right. However, that's the job of a manager. However you do it, whatever players you need to get rid of, however you then instill a different culture, that culture that they had for so many years, the culture that Man City and Liverpool currently have, is what needs to happen. They need to have. They've certainly got, and this is the thing, you actually look at the lineup, and now it's funny how we look at that lineup against Newcastle. I'm sure you were the same as me on this, that I didn't rate that team.
No.
I'm looking, they're not. But they were all good players once upon a time. It's not like they're players that have never had a value. But you look at them now, and because of what's happened, then this is the biggest thing for me, and this is where there is criticism of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is, does he have the tactical nous? Does he have the understanding and the experience that he needs to turn it around? Because when it was going great, it was fine. When it's not going so well, this is where a manager earns their corn. This is where they need to get into those key players and get a lift from them, get a rise from them. How many times do we see a Pep Guardiola team, they get a reaction? They lose that game to Norwich. What happens against Watford the next week? You know, that's the kind of reaction that you want from your team. Look, you look at United's last few games, and this is the reason I cannot see it turning around, is that they're not having shots on target. They're not playing attractive football. They're not finding ways to break down the defence. It's really poor football that they're playing at the moment, and you can't see it changing.
Do you not think it's a little bit like Manchester United didn't consult anyone who's actually played under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer before? So at Cardiff or anything like that?
I mean, I just wonder whether they got caught up in the emotion, which, you know, and that's, I suppose, the key of the board. And you look at Ed Woodward, you need to let the emotion needs to fit the fact. And early on, there was a few very, very impressive performances, and naturally you understand why they gave the job to Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, but you do wonder, had they just taken a step back, looked at it in a slightly different light, whether they'd have made a different decision. Look, we're going to talk about this more in the next hour, without doubt. 3 minutes to 7.
Love sport.
Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October. This means that travelling to the EU will change. You'll need to check online if your passport is valid for travel to Europe. If you're planning on driving, you'll need to check if you have the right documents to drive. and make sure your travel insurance covers all your healthcare needs. To keep your trip on track, check what you need to do at gov.uk/Brexit. Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October.
Don't get caught out by rising energy bills this year. Leading price comparison site A Spokesman Said can help you save money in just minutes. Plus, sign up to A Spokesman Said to get the latest super cheap collective energy deals. These offers are such great value, they aren't even available direct from the energy companies. Savvy customers have saved over £10 million from collective energy deals. Go to aspokesmansaid.com and you could be saving big money on your bills.
With aspokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
If you're in business, I bet you hate wasting money. We Do Taxi Tops can help you achieve minimum wastage on your advertising costs and maximum exposure. Our revolutionary taxi tops can target your potential customers in the right place at the right time, so your message has the greatest potential for making an impact. We Do Taxi Tops. Visit wedooh.com. We Do. The smarter, quicker way of advertising in London, supporting London businesses of all sizes.
Before you set off on a long journey, remember to check your vehicle. Are your tyres correctly inflated? And are the treads deep enough? Have you got enough fuel? Is your oil level right? Checking your vehicle doesn't take long, but can prevent a breakdown or accident and save you money. So, before you set off on a long journey, check your tyres, fuel and oil. Highways England, connecting the country.
That's for breakfast. Me, Richard Lee. Patrick Christys here with you until 10 a.m. Big hour coming up. We're going to be talking Extinction Rebellion, aren't we, Patrick?
Yes, as kind of dreadlocked individuals have ruined my commute in. It's weird for a group of people who are so concerned about negative gases finding their way into the ozone layer, they do emit a few themselves, don't they?
We're also going to be talking about dodgy agents finally getting retribution, talking to Sam Morshead, digital editor of The Cricketer. Lots more football stories as well. As always, get in touch on WhatsApp, or you can call us 0208 70 20 558. We are on the socials at Love Sport Radio, and we're on YouTube. Tune in, 7 o'clock.
On digital radio, online, mobile and smart speaker. This is Love Sport News.
From the Sky News Centre at 7, the Prime Minister's called climate change protesters uncooperative crusties. Boris Johnson's called on Extinction Rebellion to stop blocking roads in London. Nearly 300 people have been arrested. Smithfield Meat Market's one of the places being targeted by activists, but butcher Stacey Milsom is sounding philosophical.
Along the main avenue of the market, we have what we call RMs, cash customers, like coming up and buying meat. We won't have none of them. So we're going to lose more or less half our trade on the cash customers over these people. But at the end of the day, good luck to them.
Children who are seriously addicted to computer games are getting better access to treatment on the NHS in England. Some will get consultations via Skype. Kit Bradshaw has more.
The health service says dedicated professionals are now in place to help 13 to 25-year-olds who are struggling with addiction to video games. Patients likely to be referred are those with symptoms like a lack of control over their gaming and who place it as a huge priority at the expense of relationships, social life or studying. The NHS says it's an example of how our health needs are constantly changing.
President Trump has defended his decision to pull American troops out of northern Syria. One fellow Republicans called it a catastrophic mistake over fears it'll lead to Turkish military action against Kurdish forces who've been fighting Islamic State. The government's continuing to apply pressure to the US over the case of an American diplomat's wife who claimed immunity after becoming a suspect in a road crash. The Foreign Secretary spoken to his American counterpart. A woman's been seriously injured after falling from a fairground ride in Hull and hitting a teenage boy on the ground. He suffered minor injuries last night. And a royal endorsement for a new mental health campaign is thought to have caused a website to crash. Princes William and Harry, as well as Kate and Meghan, lent their voices to the TV ad for the Every Mind Matters campaign. That's the latest. I'm Matt Steele.
Love Sport.
If you look to your left, you'll see Lincoln Cathedral. And over there, the old town hall. On the right, what's his name's house. And we just went past a fountain. And if you look to your right, you'll see McDonald's, where they're serving the bacon roll. Talk amongst yourselves. Back in a minute.
Give in to the bacon roll from McDonald's. 3 rashers of delicious bacon in a soft white roll. Served before 10:30 a.m. except in selected restaurants, which will serve this until 11 a.m. Subject to availability, price and participation may vary.
Love Sport Radio. On digital radio, online, mobile and smart speaker. This is Love Sport Breakfast with Richard Lee and Patrick Christys.
Good morning, Love Sport Breakfast, Love Sport Radio. Myself, Richard Lee, and Patrick Christys here with you for another 3 hours or so, going through the back pages and some front pages too. The main headlines this morning: more United fallout. Could Ole Gunnar Solskjaer be in line for the sack if things don't go well in the next game against Liverpool? That is occupying the back pages today. Also, Chris Silverwood, England's fast bowling coach, has taken over from Trevor Bayliss as head coach. We'll be discussing that in depth. And Neil Black, UK Athletics Director, may quit. This is in light of the Salazar scandal in the last few weeks. He once hailed Salazar a genius back in 2017. I am here, of course, with Mr. Patrick Christys. We are with you for the next few hours. We've got a big hour coming up. We're going to be talking some current affairs. We're going to be talking dodgy agents, and we're going to be talking a little bit of cricket as well.
We are also some breaking news just coming through. Andy Murray is going to make his Grand Slam singles return at the Australian Open in January.
Good news.
Good news.
And he has actually, we'll touch on that, because he has made his comeback, and certainly in the China Open was successful. A few victories there, so you feel like he's starting to get back to some form.
Yes, well, fingers crossed. Hopefully, the bionic man can actually do the business. So, yeah, we'll all be rooting, of course, for Andy Murray. But there are a lot of things to get stuck in today. Across pretty much all of the back pages, it is Solskjaer fearing that a Liverpool rout could cost him his job. But very few quotes from Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, if any, actually, really saying that, which implies to me that this is coming from above.
Yeah, it is, and I'm guessing there'll be a lot of paper talk as well, in that you put two and two together and you look at United at the moment, and I guess a continuation of what we were talking about before we went to the news, in that the biggest concern right now is that, I guess with certain teams, if they're not necessarily getting the results, but you can see that there's something there, you can see they're building towards something, you can understand to an extent. Is the biggest issue here the fact that it's not necessarily the results are bad, and the results are bad, but it is the fact that there isn't necessarily a sign that it's going to turn?
Yeah, I think that is it. The total lack of creation. And it was a bizarre thing, really, because everyone, I think, expects Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, if he was going to nail one thing about being manager, it would be that the attacking side of the game would be taken care of. But it does look a little bit hapless and a little bit clueless, and you just wonder whether or not actually is there that much kind of tactical nous there. United look vulnerable from every single set piece that they face. They don't look particularly creative when they have the set pieces as well. Defensive organisation obviously called into question, and a lack of kind of penetration up top. So yeah, you do have to wonder, what is Solskjaer actually doing and bringing to this side?
Yeah, and I suppose you've touched on it there about the tactical nous. We've gone on this before, and we've touched on this before, that when he first came in, and it was interesting, when he first came in, the results were excellent. Now, I suppose when you look at it in the cold light of day, had Mourinho stayed in charge, and we'll never know this, but they did sack Mourinho at a very interesting point when they did have this run of games that were very winnable. And United did go on that fantastic run. Now, probably the result that stands out as the key result of the time was the win away at Spurs, and of course beating PSG in the in the Champions League. So you just wonder whether, look, a couple of games have gone his way. The rest, arguably, you would have expected United to do. There was that breath of fresh air when he first came in. There was that lift, and they were winning games convincingly. But that then comes back to the culture. You look at this United team now, and here's a question for you, and it's a bit of a chicken and egg, and I'll bring Kieran in on this as well. Bit of a chicken and egg, whether, look, they need a number 9 at the moment. If you were to put a top number 9 in that team, then does that suddenly ignite the team? Does that lift the entire team? Or is it a case of you could bring in a great number 9, but because of the lack of service, they're going to struggle just as much as everybody else?
Yeah, I get that question, but I just feel their lack of creativity is what's stifling them at the moment. And I look at United's midfield against Newcastle, and to line up with Fred, McTominay and an ageing Juan Mata is just not good enough for a team like United. ambitions for the top 4. And what's really interesting is when they played at the highest level last season under Solskjaer, bar that PSG result, there was absolutely no positives to take from it, and the stats back that up. Now, with Mourinho in charge as well, I was looking at their home games in the Champions League last season. Home Valencia was their first home game in the Champions League, 0-0 draw. Lost 1-0 to Juventus, so that's no goals. Beat Young Boys 1-0, Marouane Fellaini 91st minute.
Yeah.
Home to PSG, lost 2-0. Home to Barcelona, lost 1-0. So they scored 1 goal in 5 games in the Champions League at home. Marouane Fellaini scored the only goal, right? And you just think that is just testament to where United were at, and they've not brought in the right sort of players. That's my opinion on it, and we were talking about this a little bit. I'm keen to get your thoughts on that too.
Yeah, well, I'm surprised Patrick didn't pipe up when he said about them beating Young Boys.
No, it's something that I've been in trouble with Ofcom a few times, actually. Yeah, because, I mean, obviously, that just lends itself, doesn't it? Because what you should do, really, with Young Boys, are that bad, you should pummel Young Boys.
You should. I mean, they're not a great team, are they?
No, they're not.
And they only beat them. It wasn't overly convincing in the end, was it?
Squeaked past the Young Boys, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so...
Indeed.
Yes.
Any more jokes we've got on this?
Absolutely not. We'll
leave it at this time in the morning. We'll leave it at that. No, but this again. So this then goes back. I'm going to touch on Matt Benham, the owner of Brentford. Now he's very much. Obviously numbers based. We know about his model. There is the whole Moneyball model, and it's been brilliant. Now, he's very much of the belief that over a period of time, things do even themselves out. Providing you're doing the right things, then results don't always happen game to game. You'll have the game where you have 20 shots to their 1 and lose 1-0. That happens in football.
It's the Nathan Jones argument, isn't it? Stoke.
It is, yeah. So Stoke actually, if you believe in a lot of the stats, they're mid-table, yet they're rock bottom of the league. So you'd think in time, if he were to be given the entire season, they will probably finish mid-table. It's that kind of mentality. Now, one of the worst things for anyone, this doesn't just apply in football, success can be the worst thing sometimes because you get that instant success. It can give you the idea that maybe it is easier than it actually is, and you don't necessarily learn the lessons that you learn from failure. And I just wonder whether it was the worst possible thing that could happen, that we did all go a little bit overboard. And I hold my hands up. At the time, when they gave him the job, I didn't think, that's a massive mistake. A few people did, by the way, and I look back now, and they were very clever in thinking that. But the likes of even Gary Neville, I'm pretty sure we've got a quote from him where he's effectively saying, give him the job, how much do you want?
Compare that to what Wayne Rooney said. Now, Wayne Rooney is rarely deemed to be some kind of Scouse Confucius when it comes to this, but he was interviewed shortly before Solskjaer was given the contract, literally like a day or two before, and he said, look, I'd go for Poch. Poch is a world-class manager, and if he's on the table, then you should get him. And this was right in the middle of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's great run of results.
This is the reactive nature that we have in football, though. And we have it now. Like, Poch is second favourite for the sack. Now, this is a guy that a few months ago, you imagine any Spurs fan saying, I want him to be sacked. Absolutely no chance. Especially when he's guiding them to, at the time, they were very close to Man City in the league. They've ended up making a Champions League final, yet a matter of a couple of months. And it's not necessarily Poch's fault. Yet a lot of Spurs fans at the moment, because of the reactive nature, because of the recent results, because of the fact they've conceded 10 in 2 games, get rid, rather than find a way through. And I don't know, maybe that's just the culture we're in now.
Yeah, it could be. I was having a look, just based off your Matt Benham argument, Rich, at the expected goals in the Premier League this season. And it's made for fascinating reading, actually. If you look at Man United's expected goals, they've only scored 9 in the league so far. Now, their expected goals is only 12, but obviously they're not performing on that level, which suggests they might need a number 9. Yeah. But the most interesting statistic is their expected goals against, which ranks at 6.18, which is the best in the league. And their expected points total is staggering. 16 points they're expected to have at this stage, which would leave them third in the league according to the expected points total. So is it that the players aren't performing? Is it that actually that they've been a bit unlucky? I mean, what is it?
That's it. You can read whatever you want into it. One can be, as you say, they need number 9. And actually, if they had a number 9, are they now sat in third? And everyone's like, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's a genius. And this is the reactive nature we're talking about, where actually looking on that, and again, it depends what you buy into and what you believe in, but according to that, which you've got some incredibly intelligent mathematicians, statisticians that will go through that and create that, then actually there is an argument to be said that they're not a million miles away, but they've just lost 1-0 to Newcastle.
Yep. Lenin said that you always need a useful idiot. Right. So that was with the foreign policy angle. So if you had a leader of another country that had a close geographical proximity to your country who was so thick that they didn't realise that actually you were the one pulling the strings on them, that was the best situation to be in, because you're never going to go to war with them, nothing's going to happen, and essentially they are your... Right? Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is Ed Woodward's useful idiot.
Right.
And the Glazers' useful idiot, because they've brought him in and they're giving him a contract. He's so happy to be there that he's never going to quit, and they've just stuffed him in the transfer market, haven't they? And they've gone, here you go, Ollie. There you are, mate. They've just reported record profits. The players' salaries have gone up by however much, and you've got a manager here who's basically like a PR mouthpiece, and he doesn't realise that they've kind of sold a couple of his better players, even though I think it was right that they should be out the door. They've not bothered to replace them. They're not really bothering too much with the infrastructure as a club as a whole. Like, he is just a useful idiot.
Am I your useful idiot?
No, you're not useful at all.
Whoa.
Wow. Still so early in the show.
We've only got a few more hours of this.
We have. Well, look, we're going to be going through a few of the front pages. I've got a feeling, I don't know if I'm right in saying this, but I think we've solved Brexit and climate change.
Oh, the whole thing's sorted. I am now a massive solar panel.
Fantastic.
That's it. No, that's what they want, isn't it? These kind of dreadlock. What did Boris Johnson call them? Crusties? Crusties. Which is just classic Boris, isn't it? Oh, crusties. But they are a little bit. So yesterday I was walking through. I know a lot of people are probably facing some quite severe disruption thanks to the Extinction Rebellion lot. Now I had to go to Millbank yesterday, Westminster. God, the tube was absolutely fine. And you get out of the tube, and it is just a load of people lying in the road, as opposed to where they normally lie, which is in bed all day because they haven't got a job, right? And you think, like, I get what you're saying about, the environment and stuff, but it's the hysteria of it. There was a bloke, right, who was just asked what his name was, and he pulled out a picture of he had a 3-year-old and a 10-month-old child there with the picture, and he just starts crying, like breaking down in tears on the street, going, I have a fear for their future. Well, you think, just all right, mate. It's not that bad. It's fine. Okay, just don't worry too much. And it's this kind of hysteria of it. They've all trained themselves there. But can I just ask, like, does anyone know what the police's job is? Well, just in general, what do you reckon some of the basic fundamental criteria of being a police officer would be? Presumably it is to arrest people that are causing a massive monumental disruption to public law and order.
Yeah.
But in this case, we've fenced off bridges for them. We've allowed these protesters to block St Thomas's Hospital. I mean, they are deciding now, the environmental protesters are deciding which patient is ill enough to get into St Thomas's Hospital. So it's rendering 7 years of medical school completely obsolete because, Dreadlock Dave just knocks on the back of the ambulance. Oh, sorry, Gary, your shattered vertebrae is basically just a flesh wound. You can walk it off, mate. My no years of medical training. Who are you?
Well, I'm starting to get an idea of who your mates are. We've got Mad Gaz. We've got Dreadlock Dave.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a few more.
Super rich.
Yes, 16 minutes past 7.
I am what would happen if the comments section became human and ran for president.
This is Love Sport. Follow @Love Sport Radio on Twitter for all the latest news, views, competitions, and the best bits from your favourite station. Love Sport, the station giving fans a voice.
You all right, mate?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah? Really? It's just, there's a massive grizzly bear sitting on you. You sure you're okay?
Well, now that you mention it.
Sometimes we say we're fine when we're not. But with 1 in 4 experiencing a mental health problem, if your mate says he's fine, he might not be. Be in your mate's corner and ask twice. Time to change.
If you're in business, I bet you hate wasting money. We Do Taxi Tops can help you achieve minimum wastage on your advertising costs and maximum exposure. Our revolutionary taxi tops can target your potential customers in the right place at the right time, so your message has the greatest potential for making an impact. We Do Taxi Tops. Visit WEDOOH.com. We Do. The smarter, quicker way of advertising in London, supporting London businesses of all sizes.
If you fall asleep at the wheel, you'll put your life in danger, and the lives of others as well. Before you feel tired, pull off the road into a services or other safe area. Drink some strong coffee, and take a quick nap while the caffeine kicks in.
If you're having a nap, you've left your lights on, sir.
All right, cheers.
Think. Don't drive tired.
Exercise. It doesn't have to mean Lycra or a fancy gym membership. All you need is 10 minutes and you. Because a regular 10-minute brisk walk is a great way to get more active. Whether that's walking to the shops or getting off the bus to stop early. Picking up the pace and getting your heart pumping can make a real difference to your health. So, to see how much brisk walking you're doing and how you can fit more into your day, download the free Active 10 app, because there's only one you.
This is Love Sport.
Love Sport Breakfast, me, Richard Lee, Patrick Christys, who's currently yawning at the moment. Patrick, come on, back in the game, mate. How are we?
I'm good.
We're going to be talking a bit of Extinction Rebellion again. You're going to carry on your conversation from before. We're also going to be talking some front pages, I believe, now, as well as touching on some agents who are in a bit of stick today.
Yeah, well, let's actually start with the agents. So just
Yes.
for listeners, if you're just tuning in, the main stories of the day, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is fearing that he's going to get the sack if Liverpool batter United, so that's across most of the back pages. We are going to be talking about this never-ending Alberto Salazar doping scandal as well. Neil Black, the performance director of UK Athletics, looks like he might step down. He's called Salazar a genius. And England's new head coach in the cricket as well. We're going to be talking about Chris Silverwood. But before, agents.
We'll touch on agents. There's a couple that have got themselves into a little bit of hot water in the papers today. One being James Featherstone, who is an agent at Omni Sports, I believe they are. But he's been charged for a fracas, I believe.
Yes, there's very little we can say about this because it is obviously an ongoing investigation. But what we can say is what's been reported. A leading football agent has been charged with wounding with intent following an attack in a pub toilet, which put a man in his 50s in a hospital. This is according to a release from Greater Manchester Police.
What we can say is this is the agent that was involved at Birmingham. So it was quite big news when Gary Monk left Birmingham. It's the same agent that was involved
Chris
here.
Smalling as well, is his agent.
Chris Smalling, so he's obviously just taken him to Inter Milan. The other agent that's of note today is, Roma, of course it was.
Yes.
Plenty went to Inter Milan.
Dare you?
The other agent today is Will Salthouse, who is Zaha's agent. This is an interesting one for me, that Zaha is due to sue Will Salthouse over the fact that he didn't get a move. There's so much you can look into this. For a start, from a Crystal Palace perspective, I wonder what fans would make of this, where he was that adamant he wanted to get away from Crystal Palace.
He's been quite clever about this because clearly that's it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Clearly, Wilfried Zaha wanted to leave. I mean, no, it's not a secret, is it? I mean, he wanted to go, right? And also, like, fair enough, kind of. Like, sorry, Palace fans, but I mean, he's class, isn't he? He is class, and he probably could get in somewhere. And look, I'm not being funny, but if Chris Smalling can get a move to Roma, you would have thought that maybe Wilfried Zaha could get a top club.
Yeah, and two things being financially being one, and the other is, of course, being at a club that could fight for a European place, which, ironically, he's actually at a club now that seemingly are doing that. So, in the end, it's working out okay at the moment.
But the way he's been clever about this is Zaha is alleging that his agent, quote, was compromised by his relationship with Steve Parish. So what he's saying there is that clearly Will Salthouse is there fundamentally to represent Wilfried Zaha. That's why he pays his wages. That's why he's his agent. But because he is mates with Steve Parish, he essentially didn't allow him to leave. So he scuppered his chance at a transfer. Isn't this a little bit strange for an agent? Because you work off commission. So you would work normally off getting that. Is there some indication, perhaps, that now football clubs could pay agents to make sure a player stays?
I mean, look, they could, and I'm again, without knowing details of whether that happens or not, but this is where I guess it's such a funny position to be in as an agent. It should be quite simple that you work on the player's behalf, but of course, being an agent is about relationships. Now, I had 5 agents when I played, so each one, and truth be told, I kept swapping agents because I didn't particularly feel that they were doing a good job. Now, there could be an argument, a counter-argument, that perhaps they didn't rate me quite as highly as I rated myself. Well, that's the case. Don't represent me, because you want someone who is in alignment with you in terms of where you see yourself, where you pitch yourself. And I've got a load of stories, as bad stories, as well as to where I didn't particularly rate the agents that I was with. And for me, the actual organisation, the actual industry is very unprofessional as it stands. And what ordinarily happens is that agents will have close connections at certain clubs, and they'll be able to do deals with those certain clubs. But of course, the best agents will have close connections at all 92 UK clubs, European clubs, clubs in America, South America, wherever it might be, in order to know that if there is an opportunity out there, they've got the connection and they can present you in the best possible way. Now, what can sometimes happen, and we touched on the other agent there as well who's involved or was involved at Birmingham with Gary Monk, there sometimes can be that conflict of interest because, okay, whose behalf are you working on? Are you working on behalf of the clubs or are you working on behalf of the players? And seemingly, in this situation, Zaha is upset that he feels that maybe because of how tight this particular agent is with the club, that he may not have had his best interests at heart.
Yeah, and this is it. So he also represents, Will Salthouse also represented Aaron Wan-Bissaka, who of course left Palace for Manchester United over the summer. And he will have taken a hearty amount of commission on that. And look, the implication, reading between the lines of what Zaha is saying, is that because Will Salthouse has a close relationship with Steve Parish, the Crystal Palace chairman, that despite the fact that a £52 million offer came in for him from Everton and he submitted a transfer request, that move never happened, is an indication of the agent's split loyalties there. And that this implies what I find it hard to get my head around with this, right, is that if I'm a football agent and you take, look, roughly speaking, what percentage of a transfer fee would a football agent normally take?
The standard is 5%.
5%.
However, we've seen examples, Raiola being a good example from, and this is where I think FIFA are bringing in regulations now. This just came out the last couple of weeks where they're going to max it and cap it at 10%, they say, moving forward, because, again, if rumours to be believed, the fee that Raiola took on Pogba, we're talking like a good 30, 40, 50% of the actual transfer fee.
So,
it was huge.
So 2.6 million is what Will Salthouse stood to make if Wilfried Zaha had gone to Everton.
Yeah, if he was on wages of, what did you do the calculation?
Well, I just said if you're getting 5% of a £52 million transfer bill.
Oh, so it's not the actual transfer fee; it's ordinarily the contract.
Okay.
So let's say, for instance, let's say he's on £100,000 a week, and it was a 4-year contract. So give or take £5 million a year. So £2 million contract. £20 million contract. Yeah. Then of course he would be on £1 to £2 million commission.
Right. Fine. So my point is this, which is that there's not a man alive or any kind of moral thing that would get in my way of me taking home £2 million. Like, there isn't. I'd literally kill a man for it, and this is going to be used against me in court. But I would. Like, I'm watching Treasure Island with Bear Grylls at the minute, and all these like wet lettuces that are stood there. The premise is that £100,000 gets dropped by a helicopter onto an island, and then you all have to find it. The amount of time they've been wasting talking about how they're going to share it, I could have found it by now and gone home.
Yeah.
You know, so the idea for me that Steve Parish would be able to convince Will Salthouse without any kind of financial incentive whatsoever to just palm off £2 million, come on, mate, surely not. You can't.
And this
why
is
would
a
you
bit,
do
and
that?
this is the all right. So this then, and again, we've got to be careful what we say for obvious reasons, but you don't know what happens behind closed doors, and I guess that's the issue where what players want in an agent. What I always wanted in an agent was transparency. So for me, it was very simple. I'll give one good example. I again won't mention the agency because they are still operating. But essentially, I got player of the season at Brentford. Now, I felt that I was quite honest at the time as to where I pitched myself. So I was in League One at the time. So I then gave my agency 8 League One clubs and 4 Championship clubs, where I just said, look, can you just get me feedback? Find out if there's any interest whatsoever. I'd had the best season of my life. I felt that I was ready to jump back to the Championship. So I was like, could you give me feedback? It took 6 months to get feedback. And a lot of the time for me, it should be very simple, where you can call a manager, a chairman, a head of recruitment, and just get some basic feedback, because each club has feedback on pretty much every player on a database, on a system. Now, it's a bit different when you get to the very, very top level. We're going to touch on the Longstaff brothers as well, because they've had another interesting, fantastic weekend. And again, I've got some information on them and how they've operated and how it's a very different story, where in a perfect world, an agent shouldn't have too many players, because an agent can't represent that many players when you think about it. How can you be going, if you look after 50 players, well, for a start, how can you go and watch them? How can you be having enough conversations on their behalf? The amount of time you would dedicate to that player on a weekly basis would probably be less than an hour, less than half an hour if you've got that many players. So really, in a perfect world, you'd have half a dozen players, a dozen players tops, and you would be giving them a significant amount of time. You'd be watching them play. You'd know their game inside and out, so that if you are speaking to a head of recruitment, a manager, a chairman, you're able to describe and discuss them in absolute detail.
Yeah, and this is it. And that's the thing I want to contrast with we've seen a lot of negativity around football agents, and rightly so, because it almost seems a little bit, it's got a kind of boxing promoter vibe to it, in some sense. From the outside, looking into it does a bit, and that can be a bit of a wheeler-dealer world, can't it, to put it mildly, which is cool, and actually it must be very exhilarating, and it is a skill, do you know what I mean? Like, it is definitely something that a lot of people would like to do, but it's got a real dark side to it. We've seen with Will Salthouse stuff and the allegations there. We've also seen what happened to Emiliano Sala. Now, that man was the victim of a lot of people wanting a lot of money very quickly, coming at it from all different angles. I mean, it was nuts when you saw actually the amount of people that stood to benefit from Salah's transfer. It's about 6 or 7 people. For at least 4 of them had never met the guy. You know, and it is weird how that works. And that obviously had very tragic consequences. But it's not always like that, is it? And if you look at what's happened with the Longstaff brothers now, there's a completely different story to be had there, isn't there?
There is, yeah. We'll just touch on the Emiliano Sala. He's not the only one. There's thousands of transfers that happen all the time. And the difference with football agency is the human aspect. Because if you're trading stocks, shares, whatever assets it might be, then you're detached from it and you're just moving stocks, shares, assets, whatever it might be. And this happens in regular business. Of course, with football, you are talking about human beings, and that gets forgotten sometimes, certainly by a lot of people involved. No, the Longstaff brothers, I do have obviously a bit more information on because of knowing who is involved with them. A couple of very, very good people who have done a brilliant job. And Sean being a good example where he's been on loan to Kilmarnock, I think it was, and been on loan to Blackpool. And, you know, the particular agent sees the family all the time, the parents. In fact, when you saw the pictures yesterday on Sky Sports News, it was the two people that I know very well that were with him and with the parents, and they see them regularly because it's a team game. It's very much, what do the parents want? What does the player want? What works for them? How do we help them progress? You know, it's a much different mentality as opposed to talking about Emiliano Sala, where it is seeing a human being as purely a product, purely an asset, and it is a case of, can we move them? What money is it to be made? In the perfect world, and for those that have seen Jerry Maguire, and I love this film, and there's a reason I love this film, because that's how it should be. And for those that actually haven't seen the film, I won't bore you with the details, but long story short, he goes from this big corporate machine to suddenly sending a memo to his entire staff saying, actually, shouldn't it be about the players? Shouldn't it be about us giving them the right care and being on side, helping them progress, mentor them, and actually be giving them the best possible service? Comes in the next day, gets a huge round of applause from everyone, walks into his boss's office, who says, do you know what, that was fantastic. Right, you're fired.
Yeah.
And then he obviously takes his client, and it's a great film. But that was the point, and that was however many years ago, because this isn't new. What's happening now isn't new. This is something that's happened for many, many years in America, and obviously here now we're starting to see it, where there is so much money in the game that, of course, it's going to attract certain types of people who aren't necessarily out for the best of the players. More often than not, they're out for the best of themselves. 7:30.
This is Love Sport.
Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October. Brexit will bring changes that affect businesses in many ways, particularly if you buy from EU suppliers, sell to EU customers, provide services to EU clients, and receive customer data from other businesses in the EU. Businesses need to prepare. Find out how at gov.uk/Brexit. Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October.
Are you paying way over the odds for your car insurance? The spiralling costs put people off driving, full stop. But you're a careful driver, and realistically, you'll only need an insurance payout if some halfwit cuts you off on the M1. So you shouldn't be forced to pay massive car insurance premiums. And you don't have to. Go to price comparison site spokesmansaid.com today and find out the best value car insurance deals on the market. Don't pay the price for not shopping around.
spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
If you're in business, I bet you hate wasting money. We Do Taxi Tops can help you achieve minimum wastage on your advertising costs and maximum exposure. Our revolutionary taxi tops can target your potential customers in the right place at the right time, so your message has the greatest potential for making an impact. We Do Taxi Tops. Visit WEDOOH.com. We Do. The smarter, quicker way of advertising in London, supporting London businesses of all sizes.
I love my brother. We do fun things like playing together. I like having hugs with Freddie. Freddie gives the best hugs. Freddie used to be very poorly, and the doctor said he might need a new liver. Then one day, a very nice person gave their liver to Freddie. It was amazing. We were so happy. Now he's around to give me more hugs than ever.
Tell your family you want to save lives. To find out more, visit organdonation.nhs.uk.
Love sport.
Love Sport Breakfast. Me, Richard Lee, Patrick Christys here with you until 10 o'clock. Well, look, we touched on a lot of football, a little bit of front pages, but of course, there is some big news in the cricket today. We're going to speak to Sam Morshead very shortly, digital editor of The Cricketer, because Chris Silverwood has been appointed head coach of England. In fact, Sam is on the line right now. Morning, Sam.
Good morning.
Morning. So, Chris Silverwood, big news today.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it had to be made pretty quickly, and it's good that they've got someone permanent in ahead of New Zealand, because we were originally thinking that maybe it was going to be an interim coach for that. So I think that's good for England as a whole. Some people might be underwhelmed, but this is an English coach that's come through the pathway system. He knows what it's like to coach in county cricket. He knows what it's like to play at international level, and he's been part of a successful white ball team. And he's seen the ills of the red ball team, knows the problems, and I'm sure he'll have reasons places which they'll have identified as to start to improve. So, I'm sure that some people will be thinking, well, Gary Kirsten was there, why couldn't we get Gary Kirsten? But there are good reasons why they will have gone for Chris Silverwood, I'm sure.
Ashley Giles said he was the outstanding candidate. Why was that?
Well, I mean, you have to take all of these things with a pinch of salt, I guess, and that whoever is appointed is always going to be the outstanding candidate in that initial press release. And I guess we'll get to speak to Ashley and to Silverwood a little bit more on Thursday. There's some media time booked in then. We'll be able to delve a little bit deeper into it. But the reports that have come out are that Gary Kirsten didn't quite excel at his interview. His CV was probably the one that England will have looked at and gone, yes, he's the right man for the job. But for whatever reason, at the final hurdle, it didn't quite work. And I'm sure Silverwood would have spoken very passionately about what he sees England's future as being and how he can change their future in terms of red ball cricket. Again, I think some people will be underwhelmed, and I've seen some blogs already saying that this is the wrong man for the job. But we argue for such a long time for an Englishman to get the job, and then as soon as someone does, there's always a reason why we think he's the wrong Englishman or whatever. So I think that there's certainly a case for giving the guy a little bit of time to see what he can do, particularly in the Test arena.
Is it the right decision though? Because there is a little bit of the very English safe pair of hands about this. When you've got a guy there, Gary Kirsten, who has got a proven track record of success, especially at Test level, where England are at their weakest probably at the moment. And so, is this actually the most inspired choice, or is it a case of, Ashley Giles and co going, oh, well, Silverwood's one of us, isn't he?
Well, I guess I wasn't privy to the conversations in that interview space that resulted in it. If we had a full understanding of what was said and why Kirsten was eventually overlooked, then I guess we can come to a better conclusion. Obviously, he's got the track record that anyone would want from an international coach. He's done it various places around the world, and he has an encyclopedic knowledge of all levels and all formats of the game. So yes, that would be the exciting appointment, and I think it's fair to say that Silverwood is not the exciting appointment, but it remains a practical appointment, and it remains an appointment that brings in plenty of experience, both of county cricket, which we've been talking about for so long, that we want a coach who actually watches the game and knows the game, and Trevor Bayliss was quite open in that he didn't take a huge interest in the county system, whereas you would expect Silverwood, having coached at Essex and won a title with Essex, that he will be able to bring that to the job. So functional, practical, it's not sexy, is it? But it might work. And, that's given the next couple of years, we'll see whether there is some sort of legacy that he can build.
What would Giles have learnt from Trevor Bayliss's reign, and what do you reckon Silverwood can offer differently?
Starting just what we've mentioned there is that knowledge of domestic cricket and that willingness to involve himself in domestic cricket. I think Giles's quotes on that press release were also doing that as well, bringing that point up. Bayliss was not that kind of guy. He had his ideas, he implemented them with his elite players, but didn't really go and look at and scout around a lot. Obviously, the ECB have their scouting network of 5 or 6 former players that go around the counties and keep an eye on things for Ed Smith and James Taylor. But you want your coach to be involved in that. He's involved in the selection process, so you want that coach to know who he's talking about. And I think that's certainly something Silverwood will bring. And he also has a better knowledge of the bowling side of things too, which will benefit England, I'm sure. Going forwards, there's going to be a transition period with the bowlers soon when Jimmy Anderson and Stuart Broad eventually decide to call it quits. And it will be interesting to see how Jofra Archer, etc., are brought through by Silverwood and whoever he's going to bring in as a bowling coach, which I think is going to be an interim one for New Zealand and then a permanent appointment for South Africa.
What's he like as a person, kind of as an individual, his character? Because there are some noises across some of the back pages today just saying they wonder whether or not he's the type of person that would be able to stand up to a Joe Root, for example, and tell him some home truths when he needs to hear them.
I think if you're going to be the head coach of the England side, then you're going to have some element of being able to stand up to a player. I don't think you'd appoint someone if you felt that he was immediately going to give way. And sometimes we can sort of warp these interpretations of people. But I think some of the claims are probably fair. He's probably not the strictest around, but was Bayliss either. So there are ways of dealing with players, and each coach has ways which works for them. Sometimes we won't like the ways that particular coach implements, but if he tried to be someone he's not, I think that's going to probably cause more problems for him long term than just being himself and the coach that he's grown up to be. So yes, probably there's some fairness in those comments, but whether or not that will negatively affect the England team going forward, I guess time is only going to tell on that.
Okay, yeah, and clearly he won championship with Essex, their first time in quarter of a century, I believe. That was 2 years ago. So what was so good about that Essex team, and what elements of that do you reckon he might bring to the England role?
I think it's just making the most of what he has at his disposal. That Essex team was more than the sum of its parts, and I think England need that a little bit from their Test team at the moment. Particularly among the batsmen. Then they've not got with the exception of Joe Root, they've not got those players that really are averaging in the high 40s and pushing 50. And therefore, you've got to somehow add up to more. And maybe that's what he can get out of them. But I think that, you talk about creating a good team environment, and someone like Silverwood is capable of doing that. Whether or not he's capable of arresting a poor run of results should his tenure start off badly, who knows? We'll find out. But I think that while it's not inspiring, it's functional, it's practical, it makes sense on several levels. He's the Englishman that we were talking about for a long time, that we wanted to finally get the job. Let's hope he can just make a better fist of it than Peter Moores.
Silverwood will be in charge for the New Zealand tour. What are you expecting from that tour, especially given the amount of young players selected?
I think it's a learning experience for England, and rightly so, with particularly at the top of the order with Dom Sibley, Zach Crawley potentially playing. I'm not sure that he will play. Joe Denley getting a little bit more time. So it's a learning experience from that point of view. And then when it goes into the T20 stuff, that's really going to be interesting. It's quite exciting, actually, in terms of the young players from the Blast, the sort of stars of tomorrow coming through and playing. So we're going to get a glimpse of some players who may well be around the white ball arena for some time, and it's also a good test of their mental strength to go into an international environment representing their country. It's almost a second string that they're taking, so they're stepping up straight away and being the top men for their country. So I think that's going to be a particularly exciting part of the tour. The two tests aren't part of the World Test Championship. There's obviously the need to find a little bit of form early on going into a big series in South Africa, which will be incredibly difficult. And New Zealand, particularly away, is hardly going to be easy. So lots to look forward to if you can manage to stay up through the night into the early hours.
Yeah, no, indeed. Great stuff. Sam, thank you as always.
Cheers.
That's Sam Morshead, the digital editor of The Cricketer.
Yeah, he's got hard shoes to fill, actually, Chris Silverwood, because Trevor Bayliss's win rate, 57.8%, is the best of an England coach. Andy Flower underneath him, 52.7%. Duncan Fletcher, I actually think this stat doesn't quite reflect how good a coach Duncan Fletcher actually was. 42.9%. He was in charge, of course, 99 to 2007. It's kind of during, throughout really my kind of cricketing awakening, I suppose. So yeah, he has got big boots to fill. Look, it's gonna, the proof will be in the pudding with this one, because it's a little bit like the Solskjaer effect, isn't it? Where you go, you kind of want him to do well, but is he the best man for the job? And you look at a guy called Gary Kirsten, got South Africa, of course, right up there in the world rankings, and he's done incredibly well over the years. He's a genuine legend of the game, like an out and out icon that is, in cricketing terms anyway, a household name. Whereas with the best will in the world, Chris Silverwood is not. There's every indication that he could do quite well, but it just feels a little bit uninspired. This England team has lacked direction, right? We've struggled at the top of the order. We've struggled though when Jimmy Anderson was out injured. We weren't great in the field. We weren't too bad, but we just had too many failures for me. And even when you look at what we're doing in the spin department, look, is Jack Leach really England's frontline spinner going forward? I'm not convinced. So there's a lot that needs to be done here. And the idea that you would kind of appoint someone almost internally, for me, doesn't necessarily say that they're going to have what it takes about them to shake things up, to put their own stamp on it. Do the players really respect him in the way that they would have respected Gary Kirsten?
You make some good points. And as you say, the proof will be in the pudding. And you've been looking for that proof for some time.
I have, actually.
It's 18 minutes to 8.
I gave Kim Jong-un the upper hand, but only a tiny one.
Giving your team the coverage they deserve. Love Sport Radio.
You all right, mate?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah? Really? It's just, there's a massive grizzly bear sitting on you. You sure you're okay?
Well, now that you mention it.
Sometimes we say we're fine when we're not. But with 1 in 4 experiencing a mental health problem, if your mate says he's fine, he might not be. Be in your mate's corner and ask twice. Time to change.
Home insurance is vital. You don't want to end up paying through the nose when something goes wrong. But are you being charged way too much for your home cover? Are your insurance premiums simply too much to bear? It doesn't have to be that way. A spokesmansaid.com is a price comparison website that trawls the internet to find the best deal for you. Don't pay the price for not shopping around. Visit a spokesmansaid.com and start saving today.
spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
If you're in business, I bet you hate wasting money. We Do Taxi Tops can help you achieve minimum wastage on your advertising costs and maximum exposure. Our revolutionary taxi tops can target your potential customers in the right place at the right time, so your message has the greatest potential for making an impact. We Do Taxi Tops. Visit WEDOOH.com. We Do. The smarter, quicker way of advertising in London, supporting London businesses of all sizes.
If you're driving on a motorway and you see a red X sign overhead, you need to change lanes safely. Driving in a red X lane is an offence. Red X's are there for a reason, to protect you and others from danger. The lane may be blocked by a broken down vehicle or road workers, or the lane may be needed for the emergency services. So if you see a red X, change lanes safely. Highways England, connecting the country.
Love Sport.
Love Sport Breakfast, me, Richard Lee and Patrick Christys. Every now and then we play a bed. Normally it's at the top of the hour, but there is a reason we've just inserted one there. And you can probably hear something in the background.
Yeah, it's, it looks a little bit like a man's just kicked his way into the ceiling, doesn't it?
We do have someone in the studio with us who, it reminds me of a pit stop in F1. He's come in, he knew he had a 2-minute window to fit a TV, an entire TV to the wall, and it's done.
Well done.
That's impressive.
I must say it was good. Yeah.
Didn't go.
Oh,
there you go. That's it. That's the final touch. Effectively, what he's now doing, you know when you get a brand new phone and you've got the film.
Oh, this is a live radio show. All right? Out you get.
Well, there you go. This is a thing, though, right? This is the thing. You can imagine.
What is this?
It's like a workman going in to do some work on a road. There's only certain periods of time that you can actually do it. He gets a 2-minute window to fit a TV. And in fairness to him, that's incredibly quick work. It is now done. We have a new TV in the studio.
I've never seen anything quite like that before.
It was so impressive.
It's funny because actually I had no idea that we were getting a new TV.
No.
But when a man that I never really met before stormed in with a TV, it normally works the other way around, doesn't it? They come in and take it away.
TV. Indeed, especially where you're from. Kieran.
What?
What is that?
No, it's the
the Manchester area.
Yeah,
I mean,
classic.
It's fine. We're a London
rivalry.
station. We can say.
No,
as soon as we go
off the north.
Yeah.
As soon as we go national, of course, I will not be making those jokes anymore.
No.
No. Kieran.
Yes, I've come in to speak a little bit about England because, of course, the international break is upon us.
Yes.
But it's more, we look forward to it, I think, a little bit more nowadays with Gareth Southgate in charge. And he's kind of evolved this team since he took charge. And there's a nice bit in the Times today about kind of the evolution and the formations that Southgate inherited. The classic 4-2-3-1 under Hodgson.
Today, England will be playing 4-4-2.
Not quite that, but similar. He obviously changed it to a back five for the World Cup, which kind of had its successes. And then now he's gone to a 4-3-3, which I think is really exciting because we've talked about it before, but our front three is just dynamite. Yeah. So, I just wanted to get your thoughts on what you think about Southgate.
I love the fact that because it used to be like 4-4-2, 4-3-3, 4-2-4. All of a sudden, we've added this extra layer in. So now there is the 4-2-3-1. At what point do we add a fifth layer?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, could you imagine? A 4-2-2-1-1.
Yeah, but
have I got enough players there?
Like Pep Guardiola's tactics board looks like, when you get like an amateur detective and you go around and there's just like, you see it on the telly and there's just like loads of different pieces of string and just loads of pictures and it's all over like a double wall and they're like, see, it all makes sense now, guys. That's like Pep Guardiola's tactics board, isn't it? Okay, we play a 1-3-2-1, but then this one interchange up here. It's like, right, okay, man, you've lost me.
Yeah.
You've lost me.
And you've lost all of the players.
Yeah.
But the thing is, he hasn't. That's the point, right?
Yeah.
Because, and this goes back to Gareth Southgate, back to the point, we'll be a bit serious now for a minute, is that actually he's got a lot of players that understand how it is that he wants to play. And it is, say, the modern way. Like, football evolves all the time. And we go back to, France winning the World Cup however many years ago, and it was a real, not the recent one, like we're talking years ago, and it was like so defensive. Italy back in the day, so defensive, and that was the style for a period of time. Now it's shifted in a big way, and it's the way in which England play. I love watching it because it is. You talk about the interchangeable positions, you talk about the players that are able to manipulate the ball in the way they are, the power that they've now got, the pace they've now got. We've got the players to play this way of football.
We have, and just to make a slight comparison here, because Southgate actually was kind of the backup choice. So we had Sam Allardyce. That all kind of ended in tragedy, thankfully.
100% win record, mate. Wash your mouth out.
No goals conceded. Southgate came in and basically had it as an interim manager, and they said, go and prove yourself, and he did. And I want to know whether you think it's more that he's made it a club mentality or whether he's actually very clever tactically. What you think about this England team?
I think, look, I always come back to culture and I feel like I'm a bit of a broken record, but I just think that what he's created, he's quite ruthless in a nice way. Like, he's not openly and outwardly, you never see him angry. I think his emotional intelligence is brilliant. And I think that, but at the same time, players that haven't been performing, they will be taken out of the squad, but he will give them another chance. Trippier being a good example, I guess, where, look, when it's not working out, you're not in the squad. When it is working,
yeah.
I mean, look, and I just think that actually, I think players understand that it's the power of recency. It'll be really interesting to see what starting lineup he goes with. We spoke about the front three last time. Jadon Sancho coming in, doing what he did and having started the season positively.
Well, on that front three, the most interesting statistic in the Times, in the graphic they've done, is that Marcus Rashford has made the most appearances under Gareth Southgate with 31. And I think Southgate's been in charge for about 37, 38.
Yeah.
So that's really interesting to see that he's relied on Marcus Rashford a lot. And that's because he's obviously flexible across that three, and that is obviously useful for an international manager to have that sort of option off the bench. But now he doesn't get into that first 11, I don't think, anywhere near it at the moment. And even Tammy Abraham, you could argue, has gone ahead of Rashford, particularly in that pecking order. So it'll be interesting to see where players like that lie, especially Jesse Lingard as well. Martin Samuel made a comment in his piece today in the Mail saying that the Lingard kind of omission will have hurt Southgate a lot more than the Dele Alli one, which was kind of the big news coming out of the team selection this week. So there are players he obviously prefers, and that's like any manager really. But it'll be interesting to see how his midfield takes shape, because I think that's the problem area, and I think it always has been. So we've got some really exciting attacking midfielders coming through, but in that 4-3-3, can you afford to have a Maddison?
Well, this is it. So it's just having a look now at the difference in teams since Southgate's first game, which was on this day, actually, in 2016.
Wow.
Hart, Walker, Cahill, Stones, Bertrand, Henderson, Rooney, Walcott, Ali, Lingard, Sturridge.
Wow. Wow.
And you have a look at it now, you got, well, the last game anyway, they played against Bulgaria. You've got Pickford, Trippier, Keane, Maguire, Rose, Henderson, Rice, Barkley, Sterling, Kane, Rashford. I mean, as well, we've obviously seen Sancho play.
So was there anyone, I'm just trying to think, how many were the same from 3 years ago to now? I'm just trying to think, is there anyone?
There is Henderson. Yes, there's Henderson. No, that's it. Yeah.
Which just shows you a lot. The fact that they have moved on so many players, and we talk about how they're performing in the league and whether it's that important that they continue to perform on the international stage, whether that's enough to keep their place in the team, or whether he's choosing players that are performing very well in the league. I get the impression it's more the latter. It doesn't matter. Like Rashford, it'll be really interesting to see what happens over the next couple of weeks, whether Rashford is continued with, or whether he actually chooses players that are arguably performing a little bit better.
Do you think, though, that maybe for the first time in quite a long time, we've got an England manager that actually improves players as opposed
100%.
to picking the best of the players that England has to offer and then trying to just shove them into a team, like we saw with terrible effect, to be perfectly honest with you, under a lot of that golden generation. Now, do you feel as though when England players go on England duty and they come back to their clubs, that Southgate has actually improved them?
Yeah, no, I think 100%. I think, look, we actually now have a manager that's very much about development, and that's something that we haven't had for a long period of time. I think you look at Sam Allardyce being a good example of He was only there for a short period of time, but look at the clubs he's been with recently. Is it the type of environment where you're developing players? And I think this is part of the argument with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer at the moment and the Manchester United culture, not necessarily just Solskjaer, but you look at, we've always got touched on City and Liverpool, but Klopp and Guardiola, they produce players, they improve players. And I think you need to have that environment at the club. Doesn't matter what division, doesn't matter what level, if you have that environment, then you're going to have positive results.
Two players who might find themselves in this England setup pretty soon, of course, are the Longstaff brothers, aren't they?
Yeah, well, look, it's one where you do wonder, had Sean in particular, certainly after all the rumours in the summer in regards to Manchester United, and it looked like that was very, very close, you do wonder, had he have signed for Manchester United, whether he would have got a call-up. And the reason I say this is that you look at Chelsea, we look at Tomori, we look at Tammy Abraham, we look at Mason Mount. If they're still at Derby, like they were last season, do they get a call-up? Absolutely no chance. All of a sudden they play a few games for Chelsea. Admittedly, they've done very well. But now, because of the clubs they're at, they get the call-up. I just feel with Sean, and he has started the season positively. It was brilliant. I mean, he bossed that midfield, didn't he, against United. And, of course, his younger brother, Matty, what a day. Not only the goal, but the shot he had from distance. You wonder whether they could be, give it a year or two, and the fact that we love a story like that as well. When you've got the two brothers, they do play well together. They've been doing it for all their lives. Whether that could be something 3-4 years down the line, whether they're a big part of this England team.
Well, yeah, you never know. Hopefully, yes. It's just, I now personally am a little bit jaded by a lot of like breakthrough players. So like Eric Dyer looked like he was going to be the answer. Dele Alli looked like he might be creative force. Both of those have been overtaken by new talents in the shapes of Declan Rice and James Maddison respectively, I would argue. Yeah. Excuse me. Remember Rashford coming through and you thought he was the great hope of English football. He's been overtaken now, I would say, by Jadon Sancho, Tammy Abraham, these players. So, yeah, look, I'm not look, the Longstaffs do seriously look the real deal, like, don't get me wrong, but just give it a bit more time.
No, I agree. And the question will be, and this is where, look, from Newcastle fans, and I know we get a lot of Newcastle fans listening in, it's a nice story for them now because they've had a lot of negative press over the last couple of years.
I know that we're going to, look, I know that we've got some bigger stories to get into, but it's just on that. Actually, has Steve Bruce kind of sneakily done a really good job? Because that club was as divided as I've ever seen a Premier League club.
Yeah.
He's got in the Longstaffs. He's got in Andy Carroll back. You know, all of a sudden, it's started to create a little bit of a vibe there.
Well, here's one for you. This time last season, after 8 games, they had 2 points. They've now got 8, okay? And they've played some tough teams, by the way. It's not like they've played all the teams at the bottom. Arguably, their worst results have come against the teams down the bottom, the likes of Norwich, etc. So, look, you know, and I suppose that's it. From Steve Bruce's point of view, he's got an interesting game that he's trying to play. He's come in on the back foot. They don't like him initially for various reasons. The Sunderland connection, some of the comments he's made previously, etc., etc.
The fact that he's not called Rafa Benitez.
The fact that he's not Rafa Benitez and the fact that he's seen as the cheaper option. Yet he's come in, you've got the Longstaffs, and we are going to touch on them a lot today because they are big news today. They're all over the papers, and understandably so. But he's actually been very clever in terms of how he's introduced them. And it's not a case of just doing it to win favour. They're 2 very good players. Sean would have been starting anyway, I've got no doubt. But to bring Matty in, who, by the way, those that did keep an eye, pre-season he was brilliant. Scored some fantastic goals pre-season. Some thought he might even start the season. This, of course, was his first start. And you could see that he had that, I suppose, youthful exuberance, like, there didn't seem to be any pressure. It was fearlessness. The shot he had in the first half, brilliant technique. And the winner, do you know what? It's that moment. You could see the ball coming back to him, and he had that moment where, look, you see it all the time. Ball's coming, on the move, you can easily sky it, you can put it anywhere, but the focus, the concentration, you felt it was only going to go in one place, and that's exactly what it did. We're going to be going into more details on the Longstaff. We've touched on agents, actually, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more in the next hour.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to whiz some of our listeners through some other stories. Andy Murray is going to make his comeback at the Australia Open, and also going to get stuck into UK athletics, as well as the Salazar case rumbles on.
Great stuff. 3 minutes to 8.
This is Love Sport.
You're in leakage, you're in leakage. You're in leakage, you're in leakage. You're in leakage. You're in leakage, you're in leakage.
Tenna men.
Cage.
Pants and pads.
You're
discreet. Masculine.
You're
secure absorption zone. Buy online or in shops.
You're in
Tenna men. Keep control.
You're in?
No.
If you're in business, I bet you hate wasting money. We Do Taxi Tops can help you achieve minimum wastage on your advertising costs and maximum exposure. Our revolutionary taxi tops can target your potential customers in the right place at the right time, so your message has the greatest potential for making an impact. We Do Taxi Tops. Visit wedooh.com. We Do. The smarter, quicker way of advertising in London, supporting London businesses of all sizes.
My mum and dad say that I don't need lots of sugar. I'm sweet enough already. So we used the Change for Life food scanner app to find out how much sugar is in our food and drink. It's surprising how much we found. So I put my detective hat on to find the healthier choices. Woohoo! Found one, Mum! You can be food smart too. Download the free Change for Life food scanner app today.
Driving too close to the car in front gives you less time to react. You may not realise that you're tailgating. Leave a 2-second gap between you and the vehicle in front. When it's wet, leave a 4-second gap. By staying back, you give yourself time to react. Stay safe. Stay back. Highways England, connecting the country.
Lots for breakfast, me, Richard Lee, Patrick Christys. So we just had a new TV put into the studio, which is great news. We've just realised the doorstop has been put in the wrong place. So this TV may not last all that long. We're going to be talking all sorts in the next hour. We're going to be talking the Longstaffs. We're going to be talking UK athletics. We're also going to be talking a little bit of tennis as well. As always, you can get in touch 0208 70 20 558. You can get in touch with the socials at Love Sport Radio. We are just waiting for this TV to smash. It's going to happen any minute. The time is 8 o'clock.
On digital radio, online, mobile and smart speaker. This is Love Sport News.
From the Sky News Centre at 8. Boris Johnson has described climate change protesters blocking roads in central London as uncooperative Christys. Yesterday, police made at least 280 arrests during Extinction Rebellion's campaign. Dan Kidby is one of the organisers of a shutdown of Smithfield Meat Market. He says the workers he's spoken to there overnight have been understanding.
We're not here against them. We're here, we're having a peaceful demonstration. We're not disrupting people's work. We're not disrupting any pay. What we just want to do is communicate our message. So we've come with love in our hearts to really communicate and create a spectacle here, to create one that's putting out a hand of friendship.
The FBI says a man who's confessed to nearly 100 murders is now considered America's most prolific serial killer. 79-year-old Samuel Little drew pictures of the vulnerable women he targeted and is now serving multiple life sentences in a California prison. The government's continuing to apply pressure on the US over the case of an American diplomat's wife who claimed immunity after becoming a suspect in a road crash death. Last night, the Foreign Secretary spoke to his American counterpart about the case. A new dedicated service has launched in England to treat kids suffering from gaming addiction. NHS bosses say it's needed because of the increasing pressures young people face. Princes William and Harry's involvement in a new mental health advert appears to have been a victim of its own success. A website for the Every Mind Matters campaign briefly crashed last night after the NHS commercial aired on TV.
Everyone knows that feeling. When life gets on top of us.
We feel stressed, low, anxious.
Public Health England says the website's now back up and running. And Andy Murray will return to Grand Slam tennis action at the Australian Open next year. The former world number one was knocked out of the event in January and had to undergo career-saving hip surgery. That's the latest. I'm Anna Bates.
This is Love Sport.
Hey phone, connect to Wi-Fi.
Connecting to cyber criminals.
You're not listening. I said Wi-Fi.
I'm listening. Cyber criminals could be too. Using Wi-Fi could leave your personal data exposed.
How can I keep it private?
With a secure VPN that encrypts your data, you need new Norton 360. It has multiple layers of protection, including VPN, device security, password manager, and more.
Ooh.
Go to uk.norton.com to get all-in-one protection starting at $24.99 for your first year. Terms apply. That's uk.norton.com.
Love Sport Radio. On digital radio, online, mobile, and smart speaker. This is Love Sport Breakfast with Richard Lee and Patrick Christys.
Good morning, Love Sport Breakfast, Love Sport Radio. Me, Richard Lee, Patrick Christys here with you for another couple of hours, and with lots to go through this morning. The main headlines: more United fallout. Is Ole Gunnar Solskjaer in line for the sack? The bookies certainly think he might be if he were to lose to Liverpool in the next game. We'll get stuck into that. Chris Silverwood, England's fast bowling coach, has taken over from Trevor Bayliss as head coach, and Neil Black, UK athletics director, may quit. He did hail Salazar as a genius back in 2017 and is on the verge of quitting, according to the Times. Lots more to get through as well. Myself and Patrick Christys here with you all the way until 10 a.m. How are we doing, Patrick?
Yeah, I'm all right. Just before we get stuck into a couple of the major stories, I want to whiz our listeners through a couple of ones that they might have missed. Charlton boss Lee Bowyer has been charged with 2 counts of improper conduct by the FA. This is during and after the defeat to Swansea. He questioned the integrity of refereeing decisions. Obviously, you can't do that anymore. Also, one here on Dario Gradi, who is retired as Crewe's director of football after 36 years at the League Two club. Now, this has an added weight of importance because the 78-year-old is their most successful boss, and he's won 4 promotions, took them to second tier in 97 and 2003, so brilliant. But he was suspended by the FA in 2016 after it investigated a sex abuse scandal involving ex-Crewe youth coach Barry Bennell, who's serving a 31-year jail term for abusing young boys in the 1980s. But now what this means is that Gradi cannot be subject to any investigations going forward. Now, I would argue it's been 3 years since this scandal broke, and this guy was suspended, but he kind of kept his ceremonial job, as it were. And off the back of that, now he's able to kind of walk out there maintaining that he knew nothing about what went on. And obviously I can't sit here and accuse him of anything, but just in general, if I was one of those young players or a parent of one of those young players who had been abused, I would be questioning the FA here and going, well, hang on a minute, you've had 3 and a bit years to get at this bloke to really try and figure out what it is that he knew and what went on there at Crewe Alexandra, which was a terrible, damning indictment of football. And I think I'd be absolutely fuming by this. I think what
should happen then?
Well, it's a little bit like what we're seeing in athletics, isn't it? Where the powers that be try to cover up or play down what has gone on. And the fact is that there was a coach here in the shape of Barry Bennell, who's essentially a monster, like a horrific piece of work who does not deserve to breathe the same oxygen that everybody else does, frankly. And I find it difficult to believe that you can have a bloke here in Dario Gradi who can be director of a football club for 36 years and claim to have known nothing and can now just walk off into the sunset, free from any kind of scrutiny, really. I just find that very concerning.
Yeah, no, it certainly is. It's another big story today. I see Hugo Lloris out until 2020. Of course, got the injury at the weekend. We did speak to a Premier League physio on this and pretty much predicted what we're reading now, that this kind of injury for a goalkeeper will be an 8 to 12 week injury. So it certainly sounds like Lloris will be out. Gazaniga will get his chance. Lots of news on the Longstaffs this morning. Pretty much every paper. In fact, the Sun covers it in quite a big way.
Yes, exactly. So the Longstaffs have really broken onto the scene this year. Sean Longstaff was subject of interest from Manchester United over the summer. They didn't manage to get that over the line, but his brother Matty has come through and, of course, scored the winner against Manchester United. 19 years old, Matty Longstaff. And there was a really interesting piece here in the Sun about essentially what normal lads they are. So on a Friday night, went for a curry. On Saturday, they went to watch North Shields, one of the local clubs. And then on Sunday, they beat Manchester United.
Incredible.
It's incredible.
And it is, and do you know what? So a couple of close friends of mine were with the parents at the weekend for the game, and it was lovely to see. And I spoke to them since, and they said that just the sheer joy. You can imagine this. Imagine being the dad of these two. Like, Mad Geordie. Absolutely loves the club, always has done. Your two sons who have grown up together, obviously playing locally, both playing for the club that you've supported since you were a child. One scoring the winner on his debut, the other being man of the match, arguably, in the game itself. Like, I don't know if it gets any better than that for a parent.
Well, the dad's an ice hockey coach.
Yeah.
Did you know that?
Yeah.
So he's the ice hockey coach at National Ice Hockey League side Whitley Warriors. I just fancy. Well, that's just a weird little piece of information, isn't it? You've got this kind of absolutely mad, Geordie football fan, 45 years old, looks a little bit like a Mike Ashley. Oh, what do you do, David?
Yeah.
I coach an ice hockey team, obviously, right?
Of course you do. Of course. Do you know the thing I love about this story, though, was more so just I don't know if it's naivety, the innocence, I guess I use that word, where it's two lads that just love playing football. And it's something that you almost don't want to coach out of them. Look, now, they're all over the papers yesterday. They're all over the papers today. It'll be really interesting the next couple of weeks. And they've got a 2-week break, of course, until the next game. Neither are involved in internationals. So, of course, they've got a couple of weeks now before they are involved in their next game. So it's quite nice in that they can enjoy the moment. And absolutely, you have to enjoy these moments because, speaking from personal experience, you have some highs, but you have more lows than highs. Or maybe that was just me. But so you do need to enjoy these moments, but at the same time, not get too caught up in them, because what we're seeing from these and so many younger players at this stage in their career is it is pure enjoyment, and all the politics hasn't kicked in yet. All the other stuff that comes with being a top level footballer hasn't kicked in just yet. At the moment, it is stepping out of St James's Park for the first time in front of 55,000 fans and scoring the winner. It's something out of a film.
It's the dream, isn't it? And Matty actually still lives at home with his parents and his younger sister Millie, and Sean has moved into a place but very nearby, and he only moved there in the summer. And they were out together at Indian restaurant Shikara in Whitley Bay on Friday night.
Yeah.
Which is brilliant, isn't it?
I've got a feeling next time they go to that restaurant, they might get a little bit more attention than they did before this game.
Yeah. Or, like most people who end up having a little bit of money in their back pocket, they'll get everything for free.
That's the other way that it can work.
Exactly, it does work. Yeah,
absolutely. We're going to be talking a lot more, of course, about Manchester. We're going to be talking tennis later in the hour as well, because Carl Edmund loses yet again, set to drop out of the world's top 50, and will lose his place as Britain's number 1. And we're going to be talking Andy Murray as well at the back end of this hour.
Yeah, just on that, it is looking bad for Carl Edmund. And then you've got Dan Evans there, of course, who has failed multiple recreational drugs things and has sorted himself out. He's been very open about that, of course, and fair play to him. But it's the Andy Murray effect, which is that did we fail to capitalise on having Andy Murray when he was at his peak? And I think we have to say that yes, we did, because there's not a conveyor belt of tennis talent coming through there whatsoever. And for a period of time, we had the world number 1. We had a guy who's won Wimbledon twice, and you look at what's gone on when we won the Cricket World Cup. You try and get participation up, etc. I don't know whether or not we've done enough in this country to try and improve grassroots tennis, which actually, for a lot of people, is a very inaccessible sport, because you need a membership to a club like a David Lloyd's or something like that, really, normally, to go and play. Even your local tennis club normally sets you back a pretty penny, especially around the London area. And actually, is there more that we can do with that? Because, look, Andy Murray is going to make his singles return later on in a Grand Slam, I should say, in Australia. That's fine and that's great, but look, he's not ever going to be the player that he was. And I just think it's a shame, really, that Andy Murray's eventually going to shuffle off and we're going to be left with the likes of Kyle Edmund as the great white hope of English tennis.
Well, look, we're going to be talking UK athletics shortly. Is it in crisis at the moment? Also going to be talking a little bit more about punditry. There's an interesting piece in the paper today focusing on Gary Neville, but there's a bit of a broader subject here in regards to punditry, the quality of punditry at the moment. We're going to be talking about that next.
Believe me, he who laughs last thinks slowest. Ha ha ha, see, that was a laugh because I'm clever enough.
This is Love Sport.
You all right, mate?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah? Really? It's just, there's a massive grizzly bear sitting on you. You sure you're okay?
Well, now that you mention it.
Sometimes we say we're fine when we're not. But with 1 in 4 experiencing a mental health problem, if your mate says he's fine, he might not be. Be in your mate's corner and ask twice. Time to change.
Hi, I'm Barry. I'm a retired school bursar from Chingford. I thought I was paying too much for my energy and went onto a spokesmansaid.com and found that I could reduce my costs overall by £568 per annum, and I'm very grateful for that help.
With a spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
If you're in business, I bet you hate wasting money. We Do Taxi Tops can help you achieve minimum wastage on your advertising costs and maximum exposure. Our revolutionary taxi tops can target your potential customers in the right place at the right time, so your message has the greatest potential for making an impact. We Do Taxi Tops. Visit WEDOOH.com. We Do. The smarter, quicker way of advertising in London, supporting London businesses of all sizes.
How are you? How are you really? Modern life can be busy, and sometimes it's easier to look after others before looking after yourself. But there's only one you, and making small changes to your lifestyle now could improve your chances of staying healthier longer. So take the first step to a healthier you with our free How Are You quiz. See how you score and get personalised tips and support. From how to eat a little healthier to turning a 10-minute walk into exercise. Just search 1U.
Love Sport.
Love Sport Breakfast. Me, Richard Lee, Patrick Christys here with you until 10 a.m. Patrick, I want to get stuck into a bit of UK athletics. Okay. Something we spoke about a lot over the last few days. Of course, the Salazar scandal goes on and on.
Well, it does. Alberto Salazar was, of course, the front man of the Nike Oregon project. In case anyone's missed this, he's been banned for 4 years from athletics for doping violations. These include things like transporting testosterone and other banned substances across countries, administering intravenous drips to superstars, and generally cheating. He, of course, was Mo Farah's, that's a Freudian slip, isn't it? Mo Farah's coach for 7 years. And look, he's numerous athletes that have come into contact of Salazar have failed drugs tests over the years. Now, there's been a lot of backlash to this, clearly, but I don't think there's been quite enough. And the question now is, how far did Salazar's tentacles really stretch, and actually how much of a murky world is athletics? So Neil Black, the performance director of UK Athletics, he certainly looked like a broken man after the World Championships in Doha. The Great Britain team had apart from a couple of real standout performances, in the shape of Katarina Johnson-Thompson being one of them, of course, and Dina Asher-Smith, it was a disappointing tournament, disappointing World Championships for Great Britain. He has previously called Salazar a genius, and this is something that grates on me a little bit, because I find it so incomprehensible that people couldn't have known. This is a guy, when you hear some of the whistleblowers about Salazar, seen openly walking around with testosterone vials and with things like that, having a laboratory in the Nike Oregon project where you tested these things, emailing Lance Armstrong. I mean, it's the thing, he was so brazen about it. Anyone knows that you just don't put something in writing, especially if it's dodgy. Yeah. And he's emailed Lance Armstrong to tell him that he's just tested something and it's brilliant. And this is the issue, which is that where has the condemnation from within the sport really been? You've got Seb Coe there, who's pretty content to bury his head in the sand and dig out broadcasters like Gabby Logan just for pointing out that a stadium's empty. Well, why don't you make sure that no athletes are doping? And you've got the likes of Steve Cram, who is allegedly the BBC's athletics correspondent, but he's not. He is a mouthpiece for Seb Coe, basically. And this is a guy who regularly says things like, "Oh well, it's a good story for the media." Well, you are the media, mate. You're paid there to give your view, and it's this idea that people can see themselves almost above that, and that they are the sport. And I think that's a sense of arrogance. Paula Radcliffe failed to disclose, by the way, when she was standing up for Farah and kind of by insinuation Salazar, she failed to disclose that her husband's now Farah's trainer and that she's a Nike-sponsored individual.
Similar argument to argument. Is there a point when you want it to be untrue so much and you want it to go away and you don't want to even consider? Like, it almost feels like they haven't opened their mind or opened the thought that this has happened and this is a big story. It's almost like, right, the more that I just keep brushing it aside, at some point it will just disappear. At some point it will go and we can carry on with our lovely sport. It's not going away.
It's a really bizarre thing that happens to people. So, like, I obviously, when I'm not doing this, I'm a political correspondent, and even at local council level, when you've got someone who's banged to rights on something, the council just unashamedly cover up, deny. And you have to go to them and present them with just unequivocal facts.
Yeah.
And there is something that happens to people when they get into a position of authority where they just blind themselves.
I suppose that's the one, that the mindset shift. And we talk about Lance Armstrong. Like, the more that I looked into that and the documentaries I watched, it was incredible that his mindset was at a point when he was accused, he went on the defensive massively, and he ruined some careers at the time, if I remember rightly. Like, he went for people in a big way, but he was so adamant in his mind that he was in the right. And I think even when it all came out and it was, right, look, there's no way you can go. You've been backed into a corner. You have to come out and tell the truth now, which obviously he did. But even then, the sense was, it wasn't that apologetic, it just happened. It was almost still a point of, well, it is the way it is. It just didn't feel like it was all that genuine.
But the problem is that, so UK Athletics set up the Performance Oversight Group, and this was after BBC Panorama revealed what had been going on with Alberto Salazar. Now, the whistleblower of the Salazar case literally told the Times last week that inquiry, the Performance Oversight Group, was a sham. So this is the classic textbook technique of going, we've launched an urgent review into this, and then you do naff all about it. Naff all about it.
But you're seen to tick a box.
But you tick a box, exactly. It's the old Seb Coe trick. Oh, well, I didn't read that email. So you, as the head of athletics, didn't read the email that outlined the full extent of the Russian doping scandal? Oh, that's nuts, mate.
So then I suppose you'd always do this. You'd always put yourself in Seb Coe's shoes. So why is he saying what he's saying? And I go back to self-preservation. I go back to trying to protect the sport. And his way in which he's trying to protect it is to brush it under the carpet.
But if you as an individual, right, so no one thinks that Seb Coe has been walking around the Nike Oregon project with a vial of testosterone, mainlining it into athletes so that they go and win gold medals. No one's accusing Seb Coe of this. No one's accusing Seb Coe. And in fact, they don't really necessarily think it was his responsibility to have jumped the gun and gone and done it. So if you've done nothing wrong, Seb, and you think that your sport as a whole has really got nothing to hide, then why not come out and be really strong about it?
Yeah, but then I guess if you do that, then you really are putting UK athletics and athletics on the whole under a huge dark cloud, which it is.
Done.
It's done already, isn't it? But I guess that's it. He's trying to fight against that, because if this does just go away and it's just, he was one of the bad guys, but it's done. It's a nice little media story. That's done. We crack on. You can kind of move past it without it being a huge scandal. The problem is it is a huge scandal. And the more that we're finding out about it, the more people that are involved in it, at some point, does he then change his approach and actually hold his hands up and say, okay, yes, this is big. We need to sort this out.
So what I see when I see the likes of BBC's Steve Cram, who is so on the inside of athletics that it must hurt, you see your likes of Paula Radcliffe coming out and pulling the wool over people's eyes with regards to exactly what her commitments are in the world of athletics, Seb Coe behaving the way he is. I'm looking at it and I'm going, well, I'm sorry, but you've just made me even more suspicious.
Yeah.
You have, because that is the attitude, that's a siege mentality attitude of people that know there's something to hide. And if that is the case, then what is it? Because we're not going to stop looking, and we are going to find out, and then you're going to end up looking, even worse than you already do. It would be so easy to come down, condemn the living heck out of it, bring in new doping measures, anti-doping measures, etc., and really be seen to do something, even if that is just a box-ticking exercise. But the fact is they're not even doing that.
You do make a good point. And it moves on quite nicely, actually, because, of course, with the job that Seb Coe and Co do, is the punditry.
Yes, now this is it. So look, this all ties in, doesn't it? You've got a guy here, Salazar, who is just a monumental doper. You've then got the pundits, who are, by definition, paid to give their opinion and give their impression about what it is and pass comment and give insight on it, because they've been on the inside of all this kind of stuff. And they're deliberately not doing that. I can't help but feel as though maybe it's because they recognise that actually UK Athletics continue to work with Salazar even when they really knew that he was doping, because that is the insinuation in this article, and also just the dates of it. He was first revealed in 2015. UK Athletics were content for athletes to still be working with him, British athletes still be working with him, right up until the day when he was banned. So, that's happened, hasn't it? But these pundits are not doing their job. They're putting forward a kind of PR offensive. But then it ties into football, and we've spoken about what's going on with the pundits there. You've got essentially miserable blokes in the shape of Roy Keane and Graham Souness, who I'm pretty sure that someone could literally ride a white unicorn onto a pitch, score the perfect hat trick, do a bicycle kick clearance off the line, just do whatever, like save a child from a burning building at half time, and come out and Graham Souness is still tell you he was rubbish. You've got Gary Neville, who's now making things up.
So, right, and this is one, there's an interesting story today. Mike and Samuel talking about Gary Neville and asking for consistency because of the fact that there are certain things that he said in recent times that do completely contradict what he said. So, we've got some Gary Neville clips that we'll play very shortly, which pretty much it explains what you're saying, where it feels like it's very sensationalist. He wants to get things out there to spark it. Now, the question I have, and I know this does happen in certain areas where you can be pressured to do certain things, because of course if he creates controversy, arguably there's certain radio stations that do it, that want to create controversy in order to get the listener or to get the reader involved and get them angry and get them talking about it. But the problem is, if you don't believe in what you're saying, then this is the issue. You're not genuine. You're not integrity with word. You haven't got it, because actually all you're doing is you're feeding a line that you know is going to spark a reaction. You're putting something on Twitter that's going to spark a reaction that you don't believe.
And then when something happens in your life, which it does, so like with the kind of Jamie Carragher essentially spitting at a 14-year-old girl thing, and then that goes massive, doesn't it? That goes massive. Or let's say just something, just like, I'm obviously not going to speculate because I don't know anything about him, but just something happens with Gary Neville, right? Like it happens with a lot of people generally. And, that gets all over the front and back pages. He'll be going on about how it's just over-sensationalised and people are delving into it. Well, I'm sorry, Gary, but I don't honestly believe that you want to rename Old Trafford. How can you be with one breath literally asking Ole Gunnar Solskjaer how long he wants his contract to be and where he wants his statue built, and then with the other saying that we should sack him? How can you say that you're happy that Lukaku's out the door and you won't be happy until they've all gone, and then telling us we'll be better with Marouane Fellaini up front?
Yeah, well, let's hear some of these Gary Neville clips. The naming rights to Old Trafford.
I would sell the naming rights of Old Trafford if I was at Manchester United for 60, 70, 80 million a year. And invest every single penny of every. I would consult with fans whether they wanted it to happen, on the understanding that all of the money generated, that 800 million over 10 years, would mean that basically the whole of the Stretford end would be £10 or £12 to get in.
That's Gary Neville there. And again, it makes no sense for several different reasons, but for me, that just feels like I'm saying this because I know that's going to win over a lot of fans. The fans sat there who are paying a lot of money. Yeah, Gary, yeah, brilliant. I can get it for a tenner. Well, no, and there's a lot of reasons why that wouldn't happen. Also, the damage it would do to the brand, the Manchester United brand, Old Trafford being the iconic stadium. Look at the problems that Newcastle had when they changed, the backlash that they had.
Which Gary Neville has criticised.
Yeah.
So Gary Neville criticised the renaming of St James's Park to Sports Direct Terradrome, whatever the heck it is now. Right, Steve Bruce playing field. Anyway, and he criticised that, but he would rename Old Trafford and raffle it off to the highest bidder so that the people in the Stretford end who were already content to pay 60 quid for a ticket and fill it week in, week out, would now pay 10 quid a ticket in a way that makes no long-term business sense whatsoever. Like, shut up. That's not your honest opinion at all. And then you branch it out a little bit more, and you've got, your Michael Owens of this world. I mean, what is Michael Owen offering in a punditry sense there? It's a game of two halves. If you score more goals, they might win. Fantastic. You look around and you think, what calibre of punditry are we really getting now?
Well, let's hear as well. We've got a couple more on Gary Neville. This is him on Sanchez and Lukaku.
You know, you talk about Alexis Sanchez tonight going over to Italy, and I welcomed him coming to the club because I thought he would be a forward that would play all across the line, he'd score goals, he's tenacious, but it's been a disaster. He's been an absolute disaster. I mean, I have no idea what's happened to Alexis Sanchez. There must be two of them. The one that we saw playing for Barcelona and Arsenal for sort of like 5, 6, 7, 8 years, the one that's turned up in Manchester. I have no idea what it is, and I've got so much respect for him in terms of what I saw. Even, you know, we talk so well about him, but they need to now get him out of the club. You know, Lukaku doesn't want to be there, get him out of the club. It's a phased transition, this.
And of course, he was then making comments over the weekend where effectively saying they were better off with the likes of Lukaku, Fellaini, etc. So, again, it's just that contradiction. He also said United won't sack Ole before Christmas.
There's a big difference, by the way. Manchester United won't sack the manager after 3 or 4 months in a season like Chelsea would. They won't do that.
They did do it with Moyes.
No, they sacked him after 8 months. That's a particularly peculiar situation for Manchester United to do that. They won't do that with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer next season in November, which is what you said.
I suppose the question is it lazy punditry?
Well, yeah, because even in then he gets corrected. And you go, well, they sacked Moyes after 8 months. And he went, well, yeah, but bearing in mind, I think, was it a month of that at least included the off-season? So if not, a month and a half, something like that? So really, 6.5 months. You know, and he goes, yeah, it was an exceptional set of circumstances. No, it wasn't. Sir Alex Ferguson retired. The first opportunity they had to sack a manager after Sir Alex Ferguson, they did it.
Yeah. We'll give him some credit, though. He is still the smarter of the two brothers.
He so desperately wanted to, 1, score goals, 1, play well, 1, be the star, 2, 4, play for England. The England thing was a killer.
Oh. Can you imagine being on the Neville's pub quiz team?
No.
Oh, so, okay, ladies and gentlemen, question number 1. Who is the 47th President of the United States? Yellow! What? Yellow! Shut up, Phil. Right, that's not the question.
Classic Phil. 28 minutes past 8.
Love Sport. Listen to Love Sport Radio on your smartphone today. Simply download the free Love Sport app from the App Store or Google Play. Tap the play button and you'll be able to listen to your favourite station. Anytime, anywhere. Love Sport Radio, the station giving fans a voice. Pets are part of the family, but vet bills can spiral out of control. You shouldn't have to choose between treating your sick pet and putting food on the table. A spokesmansaid.com can find the best pet insurance deals for you.
The spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October. This means that travelling to the EU will change. You'll need to check online if your passport is valid for travel to Europe. If you're planning on driving, you'll need to check if you have the right documents to drive. And make sure your travel insurance covers all your healthcare needs. To keep your trip on track, check what you need to do at gov.uk/Brexit. Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October.
If you're in business, I bet you hate wasting money. We Do Taxi Tops can help you achieve minimum wastage on your advertising costs and maximum exposure. Our revolutionary taxi tops can target your potential customers in the right place at the right time, so your message has the greatest potential for making an impact. We Do Taxi Tops. Visit WEDOOH.com. We Do. The smarter, quicker way of advertising in London, supporting London businesses of all sizes.
You probably think you're pretty good at multitasking behind the wheel. I mean, you have to multitask to drive. So what's wrong with checking your phone? The thing is, your brain simply doesn't work that way. Even a quick look at the message, or firing off a quick reply, affects your concentration and makes you less able to react to hazards. If you use a mobile phone while driving, you're 4 times more likely to crash. Think. Put your phone away.
Before you set off on a long journey, remember to check your vehicle. Are your tyres correctly inflated? And are the treads deep enough? Have you got enough fuel? Is your oil level right? Checking your vehicle doesn't take long, but can prevent a breakdown or accident. And save you money. So, before you set off on a long journey, check your tyres, fuel, and oil. Highways England, connecting the country.
This is Love Sport.
Last Sport Breakfast, me, Richard Lee, Patrick Christys. We are here with you all the way until 10 a.m. Now, there was an interesting story in the paper about the Longstaffs and, in particular, what they had the night before the game. I believe they had a curry, Mr. Christys.
Yes, they did. So this is the Longstaff brothers, Matt and Sean Longstaff, or Matty, as he's known. And he scored the winner, popped up and scored the winner, Matty, against Manchester United in their 1-0 victory over the weekend, playing in midfield alongside his brother, of course. Anyway, some details have been revealed about how they warmed up for the game. So these are two young lads, Geordies through and through. What do you reckon they did, Rich?
Well, I'm guessing night before a game, of course, you'd have your usual pre-match, which would be maybe some protein, maybe chicken, maybe some broccoli, lots of veg, maybe
Any
a bit
carbs,
of pasta.
maybe a bit of
and
energy.
a little bit of like brown pasta, maybe.
What about lambuna?
No, that's not on the list.
Peshwari naan?
I mean, delicious, but not on the list.
Yeah, tandoori lamb chops.
You're making me really hungry.
Oh, gosh.
Could you
anyway,
imagine that right now?
That's the Longstaffs. That's the Longstaffs. They
what
went
they
out for
had.
a curry. They went out for a curry on the Friday night. They watched the local team, North Shields, play on Saturday morning. And then they went out and beat Manchester United on the Sunday.
Indeed. Well, look, we're going to be talking a bit of sports nutrition because I'm delighted to say we've got Alex Nealon, the sport dietitian from thesportdietitian.co.uk on the line. Morning, Alex.
Good morning. How are you doing?
Yeah, we're good, thanks. We're good. Want to talk a little bit about this. Of course, it's a big story in The Sun today, and obviously a very positive one, given how they performed against Manchester United. Of course, Matty Longstaff scoring the winner. That being said, obviously sports nutrition is evolving. I'm assuming that a curry a couple of nights before the game probably isn't the best thing to be eating before a game.
Well, to be honest, it really depends on a lot of things. People love to label a curry as being unhealthy, but there is ways of doing it well. If you give me a bit of detail in terms of whether it was creamy or whether it was deep fried, then I can kind of give more of a detailed argument, if that makes sense.
Okay, all right. Well, look, I'm just going to run you through what my last takeaway order was, all right? And I want you to I want you to stop me when it starts to get a little bit cholesterol-y. So I had 5 tandoori lamb chops.
Oof.
Okay.
Yep, okay.
Yeah.
I then had a chicken tikka masala with pilau rice.
Yeah.
I then had sort of 4 poppadoms with the pickle tray. So it was like the lime pickle, the mango, that kind of minty yogurt one that you get
delicious.
as well, yeah?
Yeah.
I then had
me hungry as
a
well.
Peshwari naan.
Oh,
yeah, and
so
that was
sweet.
where I stopped until I ate what was
Did
left
you
over
use the
from my
Peshwari
girlfriend's.
naan to scoop up a lot of the
you
food?
know it. You know it. Anyway, so basically, when can I start in midfield for Newcastle?
I think you could start tomorrow from what you've told me there in terms of eating. Just in terms of sports nutrition side, I think that people get hung up in the night before quite a lot. If it was a marathon, then yes, it needs to be lots of carbohydrate coming in. You want to keep dietary fat low. But for a football game, it's not going to be completely an exhausting form of exercise. It's not going to be something that's going to be more than 90 minutes, you'd hope. So really it's about having carbohydrate, protein, yes, vegetables. And yes, there could be better options to have before the game. But obviously, there has to be a balance there as well.
Does it matter what carbohydrates and what proteins that you have? Because I suppose if you're to break it down into a mathematical equation of sorts, then is it a case of you should have X percentage of carbs, X percentage of fats, X percentage of proteins, or is it a bit more complicated than that?
A little more complicated. It's based on the individual. So basically, the bigger you are, the more food you need. The smaller you are, the less you need. So if someone who is an athlete at a high standard like he is, obviously, we're looking at 1.1 to 1.3 grams of protein per kg body weight. And carbohydrate, he wants to be having 5 to 8 grams of carbs per kg body weight as well. Which, in simpler terms, is basically make sure he's eating 100 to 150 grams of protein a day. Try and make sure it's lean, so chicken, fish. If you're going for lamb, try and keep the portion sizes down. It is a little bit fattier, as I'm sure you can imagine. Poppadoms, I'm afraid to say, are not the go-to in terms of sports nutrition. In terms of the carbohydrate, whole grain will keep them fuller for longer. But you know what? You need to also make sure that you enjoy the food. Because if you don't enjoy it, what's the point in even trying it?
Makes a good point. Well, I'm looking at my co-host here, and I want to get the best out of him on a day-to-day in the show. I want him to be alert. Now, to try and describe his shape, he's got a lot of dormant muscle, I'd say. So how can we get the best out of Mr. Patrick Christys?
Well, obviously he's very, very talented at what he does, so I'm never going to tell him what to do in terms of his job. But in terms of getting the best out of him, balanced diet, try eating fruit or veg with every meal.
You should try it.
Try not to let yourself become over hungry, and make sure you're incorporating protein in every meal if you can, and lots of fibre, whole grains. You know, it's quite simple, really.
Is there not an argument to be had as well that actually eating Indian food, so I know Adam Peaty, the swimmer, eats a lot of chili because he says it helps speed up his metabolism and things like that. So is there something in that as well? If you have your curry, it might actually help with your metabolism?
In terms of the metabolism, that is certainly something that's taken out of context in the world of sport nutrition. Yes, it will increase your metabolism, but only if you're a pasty ginger Irishman like myself who is not used to eating curry.
Right.
So if it's someone who eats spicy stuff regularly, it's going to have no impact on the metabolism. But if it's someone who generally isn't used to spicy foods, then it will have an acute effect and only a short-term effect on increasing that metabolism.
I want to ask you about the term the cheat meal. So a lot of sportsmen, in fact, a lot of people do this. They'll have a cheat meal every week. Now, I remember someone telling me this. I don't know if there's any truth to it, so I'm going to ask you, in that this can actually help kickstart the metabolism. If you eat really healthily all week, and then maybe after a game on a Saturday night, you have a massive pizza or whatever you have, whatever you want, essentially, once a week as a massive cheat meal, but it can actually be quite a positive.
I think people take that out of context as well, unfortunately. The bad news is there is no evidence behind that at all. What it does do, though, is I like to call it a reward meal rather than a cheat meal, because a cheat meal can turn into a cheat day or a cheat week, as I'm sure a curry can be followed by a cheat life and 10 pints and that kind of way, you know. So we're trying to avoid that. So instead, having a reward meal or a treat meal in a way of keeping you psychologically sound, so you feel like, you know what, I can actually stick with this week in, week out.
Yeah, so this is it. So psychologically, if you are so disciplined every single minute of every single day with your nutrition, actually, can it not be quite a good thing psychologically to go out and have a little splurge, like literally once a week or once every couple of weeks? And when I say that, I mean just like a Chinese takeaway or an Indian or something like that, not like, you know, kind of the all-you-can-eat world buffet that I actually have a loyalty card to. But, you know, maybe that could actually help just boost your mental well-being and therefore make you perform better.
I totally agree with that. The main message I'm trying to get across is sustainability here, guys. You know, why start something if you can't maintain it?
True.
Diets are short-term. Lifestyle change is literally for a lifestyle. So I couldn't agree with you more there. I would think having these things that are planned, though, so planning like an Irish wedding or planning something where you're going to actually let your hair down a little bit means that you look forward to it. It means that you don't feel the guilt afterwards. But also it means that you can stay on track. Out of the people I've helped, the people who stay strict, inverted commas, 100% of the time are the people who don't maintain it. The people who stay healthy 80 to 90% of the time are the people who I meet 2 years down the road and are still in shape, still happy, still living longer.
That's great advice. I've got another question for you in regards to sleep. And actually, we have it here. We get up at 4:30 in the morning to get ourselves into the studio at the time that we do. So often you are operating on very little sleep, which I'm assuming can then impact your choices more than anything, which again can then impact your nutrition.
100%. So motivation is a muscle. And one of the big depending factors on how motivated you're going to be is how rested you are. Exercise provides a stimulus, but it's rest that provides the adaptation. If we don't recover, we don't see proper change. If we've got high levels of cortisol in our body from being stressed, and when I say stressed, I mean under-rested, that means that you're less likely to actually hit the gym at night, you're less motivated. You're also not going to experience the benefits to the full extent that you would from a true and proper training regimen.
Very, very interesting. So finally, obviously, we're talking about the Longstaffs. One of the reasons that this has come up, as we mentioned, it is a big story in The Sun today. And it's touched on in a positive light, but I guess had they lost the game, it could be something that was touched on in a negative light. Can they carry on going out for a family curry on the weekend, is in your opinion?
In my opinion, I would go out there, but obviously have a sense of awareness of what is the most sensible choice. As a professional athlete, as I'm sure you'll agree, the standard is very high. If you're trying to put dirty petrol into a Ferrari, something is going to give eventually. You know, we have to think about what you can do in terms of maximising your chances at an elite level. If it was me, if it was recommended them, I would say have that curry the night after the game, not the night before.
Great stuff. And lastly, just tell us a little bit about your sport dietitian websites. We know you do some great work.
Yeah, cheers. So my story is, used to be really overweight myself, had my own struggles, and now spent the last 13 years helping people and athletes feel better about themselves and perform. So I think when it comes to food, it has to be sustainable. Don't get caught up in the fad diets and gimmicks. Just because you see avocados and dark chocolate all over Facebook and Instagram does not mean it's what you should be doing. So if you want to reach out to me, it's www.thesportdietitian, that's with 2 T's.co.uk.
Do you mind me asking how heavy you were at one point and how heavy you are now?
Yeah, when I was 15 years of age, I was 15 stone or 90 kilos.
Okay, all right, fair enough. Yeah, all right, that's just interesting because I actually I lost, well, I've put about stone a bit back on now, I was about to say, but I was 16 and a half stone and got down to 13 and a half. And then started working the breakfast shift, and now I eat breakfast a lot. So, there's that. But yeah, we're still getting there anyway, so respect.
Great stuff. Alex, really appreciate you coming on.
Look, my pleasure, gents. Have a great day.
Fantastic. You too. Alex Neil in there, the sport dietitian, www.thesportdietitian.co.uk. So some good news there. I love that quote. Motivation is a muscle. So you do have an active muscle.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, I do.
Yes, you do. Very interesting, though. And actually, I did want to touch on the cheat meal because we hear this a lot in sport. And actually, he made a good point there that a cheat meal can turn into a cheat day. And actually, it should be more so a reward meal. And I suppose this is a good example where you go and have a day like that. There is a balance, and you made a good point about it being psychological more than anything, that if you are so strict in everything you do, then at some point it can drive you a little bit crazy, because I think it sounds a bit of a justification, but life is to be lived. Like, why would you be so strict every minute of every day? At some point you do need to reward yourself, and if that is a meal that you wouldn't normally have, then why not?
Yeah, but everyone's life's different. Like, everyone's life is completely different, and with respect, like, there are a lot of people, and look, I'm one of them, where I tend to, I've got 2 jobs really, so I kind of work, until I get up at 4:30 in the morning and get home at about 8 p.m. at night. I'm going to eat what I want, mate. I'm knackered.
And you do. It's 17 minutes to 9.
I'm not a snob. I just don't want to be in the same car as my chauffeur.
Love Sport Radio, the station giving fans a voice.
You all right, mate?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah? Really? It's just, there's a massive grizzly bear sitting on you. You sure you're okay?
Well, now that you mention it.
Sometimes we say we're fine when we're not. But with 1 in 4 experiencing a mental health problem, if your mate says he's fine, he might not be. Be in your mate's corner and ask twice. Time to change.
If you're in business, I bet you hate wasting money. We Do Taxi Tops can help you achieve minimum wastage on your advertising costs and maximum exposure. Our revolutionary taxi tops can target your potential customers in the right place at the right time, so your message has the greatest potential for making an impact. We Do Taxi Tops. Visit WEDOOH.com. We Do. The smarter, quicker way of advertising in London, supporting London businesses of all sizes.
If you see somebody showing any of the signs of a stroke, you don't have to think about it, you just dial 999. Use the FAST test. F. Face. Has their face fallen on one side? Can they smile? A. Arms. Can they raise both arms and keep them there? S. Speech. Is their speech slurred? T. Time. Time to call 999 if you see any one of these signs. Act fast, make the call, dial 999.
Whoa! Look how much saturated fat is in these chocolate biscuits. It's surprising how much is in our food and drinks. For us kids, eating too much saturated fat can lead to harmful fat building up inside, which we can't see, increasing the risk of heart disease or stroke when we get older. So be food smart. Download the free Change for Life food scanner app and start making healthier choices today.
This is Love Sport.
That's for breakfast. Me, Richard Lee, Patrick Christys here with you until 10 a.m. We spoke a lot of athletics, a lot about the Longstaffs, a lot of football today, but we haven't touched on the tennis in too much detail, but we will do now. You'll be pleased to hear, and who better to do so than the one, the only Love Sport tennis expert, Ross Satire. Morning, Ross.
Good morning, Jen.
Good morning. Lots to discuss this morning. I think Kyle Edmund being the big story.
Yeah. So he was defending quarter-final points here at Shanghai. Drew a qualifier, Jeremy Shardy, who actually ironically put out Dan Evans in the final round of qualifying. it wasn't a bad match, but it was a sixth straight loss for Edmund. He will now not only lose the number one spot to Evans, who's arguably been the most consistent British male this year, but he's also going to probably crash out of the top 50, which is possibly a bit more sinister for the poor guy.
Well, it is. A big point being as well with Edmund, coaches. He seems to have chopped and changed quite a lot. He changed again recently, I believe. This is quite a big story.
Yeah, so at the beginning of the year, the coach had really made an astronomical change to him, his attitude, and how he was sort of progressing. Fiddy Rosengren decided to retire, wanted to spend less time travelling on the tour. And what normally happens is players will be like, "Oh, I'm losing all the time. It's all your fault. You can go." So it's quite rare for a coach to actually be you know what, I'm done and I'm tired and it's time to go. He had Mark Hilton, who used to be Dan Evans' coach, in his box for quite a while, and then I think just before the Asian swing, Mark decided that it was time to go their separate ways. And again, it's not often that coaches actually say, "I'm going to call time." It's normally the player that's like, "That's it." So, to be honest with you, I think it leaves him a little bit rudderless, a little bit lost, and I think that's shown. He's lacking confidence. He almost needs to do what he did earlier this year: drop down to the challengers, get a bit of confidence, get some wins under his belt, and then start again. He needs a major reset.
Well, he did get to the brink of the top 10. Was he overachieving when he did that?
I don't think so. I mean, you can only play who's on the other side of the net from you, and he does have decent elements of the game. He works very hard. He's got a very good work ethic, and he makes the best of the weapons that he's got. He's got a great serve, forehand 1-2 punch that can floor most people. Gets good free points off that. I think what's happened here is that his confidence has just been knocked and knocked and knocked, and right now, everything seems to be a real uphill climb for him. I think it's good that we're coming to the end of the season. Look for a coach that fits him, not necessarily a big name. And this is something that Dan Evans said in America as well. I'm not looking for a big name. I'm looking for someone that works well with me. And I think that's what Edmund needs, is someone that gels with him. And just reset.
Well, does he have, I suppose, the mental strength, would probably be the word I'd use, to be Britain's number one? Of course, it's been Andy Murray for so long, and for someone else to step into those shoes, I guess you need to be quite a big character. Does he have that?
That's a really interesting one. When he got the number one, it was because Murray was slipping down the rankings rather than him sort of surging up the rankings at the time. It took him a while to bed into that role. And I thought when we saw him in Indian Wells, where he won the Challenger and then picked up a couple of rounds and he looked really good. It was the first time I felt that he really had grown into the role. But then his summer and his autumn have just been pretty mediocre, to be absolutely honest. And Evans, who also is looking for a coach, has really just sort of thrived and been a lot more consistent and hardworking. So there's a lot of things that need to sort of be fixed in the off-season for Edmund.
Let's move on to Murray. In action yesterday, battled back from a set down to win. He's showing a lot of guts right now.
He did. That was not an easy watch, let me tell you. There was much earthy Anglo-Saxon in Britwatch Towers. That was a really tough match for him, because qualifiers are going to come in and think that they've got a real chance against him, and Londero really took it to him. But I'm just keenly watching his movement. He's moving well. He obviously still has that passion to win. So it was a great win. He's got another difficult one today with Fabio Fognini, but we shall see.
And he also announced this morning he'll play in the Aussie Open. So he's had a rollercoaster year since that incredible tussle with... I'm going to try and pronounce his name, and you're going to help me with this, I'm hoping, Roz. This is where you butt in and just say it without me actually having to say it.
Roberto Batista Agut.
That's one. There you go. Yeah, easy to say. But he's had a rollercoaster year since that incredible tussle. But good that he's announced this. This is positive news.
Yeah, I mean, he's announced his intention to play, which is great. That means that he's got in mind a decent winter training block to sort of supplement what he's doing out here. A good training block and good preparation. He'll be leading the GB team in the ATP Cup. That's the new initiative that will start next season. So, he'll get some good matches down under, get a chance to acclimate and then give it a red hot go, as they say.
And what else is still to come in the tennis world by the end of this year?
By the end of this year, we've got finals galore. We have the WTA finals in China, which should be all kinds of exciting with lots of newer names making that final 8 roundup. We've got the ATP finals in the O2 for the last time, so that'll be kind of special. And then we have the what we laughingly call the PK Cup, the new Davis Cup format, heralded in bizarrely by Gerard Piqué. So
it's so random that I've got so many questions about that. But yeah, the PK Cup, is it quite a serious deal? Do people take it seriously?
Well, the Davis Cup has always been one of these tournaments that really gets players going, and they don't often get to play as part of a team. We saw the impact when Britain won the Davis Cup. But this new format has got many fans certainly hot under the collar. It's instead of being one team versus the other in one home site and that whole kind of home advantage versus the away fans. It's now a week-long competition in somewhere neutral. And I'll be honest with you guys, I'm actually going just to see how it all pans out. Nice. But yeah, GB will be in there as well. So it'll be interesting to see. But I like you, have many questions about this.
Yeah, indeed. Great stuff, Ross, as always. Thanks for joining us.
No problem.
Great stuff. Ross Sattar there, loves sports, very own tennis expert, going through the latest in the tennis world. Mr. Patrick Christys, want to talk to you a little bit about Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. We touched on him earlier in the hour. Of course, lots of stories at the moment suggesting that a defeat against Liverpool in the next game could mean curtains for Ole. They've got some tough games coming up. We had an interesting conversation earlier where currently, according to the XG, if you're to believe in the expected goals, what would it be? An
people
algorithm.
Just decided not to bother spelling things properly anymore. Is this what's happened?
We just abbreviate everything these days.
Because we've got Extinction Rebellion as well. XR. It's E.
True, yeah, we just miss out the E. ER doesn't sound, well, it could be something completely different, I guess, so kind of makes more sense. XG, we've got Kieran, who has pulled his mic down, has something to say.
Yeah, I'm a bit of a stato like you when it comes to this sort of stuff, Rich, and this XG is kind of the best barometer, I think, that in recent times. We have this, it's not even an argument because I agree with you, but we have this moan all the time when saves come up about goalkeepers, and that goalkeepers are essentially ranked by the amount of shots
saves they made, yeah. Which, of course, you play for the
ridiculous.
bottom team. You're making more saves than an Ederson. Out of interest, so we touched on this earlier, that Man United currently would be third, according to the XG. However, who is top? Is it Liverpool? Is it Man City?
Yeah, it would be Man City.
Yeah, which is interesting.
Liverpool are outperforming their expected points by 7.3 points at the moment, which is absolutely insane.
So this would always be the argument, and I mentioned earlier Matt Benham, who is the owner of Brentford FC, and he very much adopts the whole Moneyball idea when it comes to building his teams and based on numbers, effectively, and the thought that in the end everything evens itself out. Now, if that is the case, then Man United, in theory, would at some point start to climb the table. If it is also the case, at some point, City will close the gap on Liverpool as well, you would think.
Yeah, you would think that, but confidence counts for a lot, I think, in football, and momentum. And actually, you can defy numbers, I think, a little bit in sport. It's very easy to bring it back to these kind of figures. But
I remember a conversation I actually had with Matt Benham, and he touched on, it might have been, I think he might have explained it to the squad, where luck plays a big part in football. I don't think we can escape that. Look, we're talking about United, whether they need a number 9. You have a clinical number 9. That, of course, will play a part in your team. He gave an example, if I remember rightly, about Newcastle, where 2 seasons, their stats were very, very similar in terms of possession, in terms of XG, etc., etc. One season they finished 5th, the next they finished 16th. Now, that kind of shows as well, and actually that's a bit of a warning to the likes of a Watford, where there is a very small difference between a lot of the teams in the Premier League. And actually some seasons you might get a little bit of luck and you might find yourself in the top half, or in Newcastle's case finishing 5th, or the next season you don't get the luck and you find yourself finishing 16th, which I guess is... so you're looking at United, look, at the moment you could argue maybe they're not having the luck, maybe they don't have that clinical striker that they need, maybe they're very close to being a good team.
Absolutely, and when you look at the expected goals, so we've talked about the expected points tally, but the expected goals, which is probably slightly easier to calculate, Man United would be 5th in the table. So, they should be a European top 6 team. And we had Dan Nardiello come on the show yesterday and say the best they can hope for is top 10. The stats actually defy that opinion. And, a lot has been made of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's tactics. Perhaps it, comes down to the players a little bit, and they're perhaps underperforming a little bit when they get in the situations. Tactically, Ole looks very sound defensively, but the creativity isn't quite there. There's a lot to be said for that, and they're not playing in the United way, which everyone comes back to, and that's why Mourinho left, essentially. He has the second best win ratio as Man United manager in history, but he wasn't good enough. So, yeah, there's a really interesting debate, how much do you follow the figures? But what I want you to do in this last sort of minute before the news, it's really interesting. The expected goals bottom 3 is really interesting. So one is in the bottom half and kind of expected. They're 20th. But 2 of the bottom 3 in expected goals are in the top half. I want you to guess who they are.
Burnley.
No.
Ooh.
Burnley are 5th bottom.
Okay, that is interesting. Go on, Patrick. Who would you guess?
United.
No, United.
They're in the bottom half, aren't they?
Yeah.
So we're talking a top half team that would be in the bottom 3 according to the XG. Go on, I've actually... I'm not too sure who it would be.
Okay.
I'm going to go Bournemouth.
No, it's not Bournemouth.
Go on then, who is it?
It is from the bottom upwards. So Newcastle are the team in the bottom half. They're bottom with 4.95. Then Leicester are 19th with 8.1 expected
I'm shocked
goals.
at that, yeah.
And then Crystal Palace make up that bottom 3. They're in 6th at the moment with 8.64. So, Leicester have scored 14 goals from an expected goals ratio of 8.1. So, very interesting.
Which shows that they're very clinical. Maybe that's the Jamie Vardy effect.
Absolutely.
I don't know. And look, ordinarily, this is where I suppose at the end of the season we'll be able to see exactly how accurate, because people say it tends to mirror the league table, but certainly at the moment it looks like it's nowhere near. As always, let us know your thoughts on this kind of stuff. 0208 70 20 558 on the WhatsApp.
This is Love Sport.
Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October. Brexit will bring changes that affect businesses in many ways, particularly if you buy from EU suppliers, sell to EU customers, provide services to EU clients, and receive customer data from other businesses in the EU. Businesses need to prepare. Find out how at gov.uk/Brexit. Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October.
Hi, I'm Dean. I work for a successful shipping company in Suffolk. Ever since I heard about people's success with the spokesmansaid.com, I knew I had to investigate for myself. Every time I need to compare car insurance, home insurance and energy bills, I always contact a spokesmansaid.com. This year alone, I saved over £260 on my car insurance and also £585 on my energy bills. I saved big through a spokesmansaid.com, and you could too.
With a spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
If you're in business, I bet you hate wasting money. We Do Taxi Tops can help you achieve minimum wastage on your advertising costs and maximum exposure. Our revolutionary taxi tops can target your potential customers in the right place at the right time, so your message has the greatest potential for making an impact. We Do Taxi Tops. Visit WEDOOH.com. We Do. The smarter, quicker way of advertising in London, supporting London businesses of all sizes.
There are many things a mother can pass on to her baby. Her smile, her eye colour, and her immunity to whooping cough. Whooping cough is a very dangerous illness for young babies, and at the moment it's spreading fast. A simple vaccination during your pregnancy can help to protect your baby in their first weeks. Please speak to your GP, nurse, or healthcare professional and pass on your immunity.
That's Sport Breakfast. Me, Richard Lee, and Patrick Christys here with you for another hour or so. Of course, Martin Bell is up next. The brilliant Martin Bell. We are back tomorrow at 6:30. We have, however, got a big last hour to look forward to. We're going to be speaking to John Hammond, who is an actual meteorologist, unlike our fraud of a producer who pretends to be one, because a typhoon looks set to hit Japan in time for the weekend. We're also going to be speaking to Johnny Gold, director of Aston Villa Supporters Trust. Of course, they had that magnificent win at the weekend against Norwich, so we'll be going into detail on that. As always, you can get in touch, 0208 70 20 558 if you want to call us or WhatsApp us. We're also on the socials at Love Sport Radio. We're also on YouTube these days. Simply go on YouTube and type in Love Sport Radio. The time is 9 o'clock.
On digital radio, online, mobile and smart speaker. This is Love Sport News.
From the Sky News Centre at 9, the Prime Minister's appeal to climate change protesters to stop blocking London streets. Boris Johnson described Extinction Rebellion activists who are staging a fortnight's worth of action as uncooperative Christys. The FBI says a man who's confessed to nearly 100 murders is now considered America's most prolific serial killer. Pensioner Samuel Little is serving multiple life sentences in a California prison. Many of his victims have never been found, but in videos released by detectives, the 79-year-old details his crimes, including where he left one of the bodies.
I seen a motel in a road leading up to the motel. And there's a lot of bushes and brushes beside the road before you got to that motel. That's where I dropped.
The NHS is opening a clinic to help young people who are seriously addicted to computer games. GPs will be able to refer 13 to 24-year-olds in England. Professionals will be able to hold consultations with patients over Skype. NHS Mental Health Director Claire Murdoch says games can become all-consuming.
When something seriously interferes with activities of everyday life, your friendships, your time with family, your ability to study, go to work, sleep, which is essential, then you start to have a very serious problem.
The Foreign Secretary has raised the case of the death of 19-year-old Harry Dunn with his American counterpart. Dominic Raab has urged Mike Pompeo to reconsider the immunity enjoyed by a diplomat's wife. Andy Murray will return to Grand Slam tennis action at the Australian Open next year. The former world number one has undergone hip surgery since an emotional exit from the event in January. And Barclays says it'll protect more than 100 branches, which are the last banks in town. Those ring-fenced locations are guaranteed to remain open for at least the next 2 years. That's the latest. I'm Anna Bates.
Love sport.
There's nothing like coming back to a warm home after a long day at work. Especially when you've been stuck in rush hour for what seems like an eternity. Luckily, with Hive Active Heating, rated 5-star on Trustpilot, you can turn your heating on from wherever you are. And now, with our new Hive radiator valves, you can even control your heating room by room. Search Hive Heating to buy now. Hive services require broadband and Wi-Fi. Terms apply.
Love Sport Radio. On digital radio, online, mobile and smart speaker. This is Love Sport Breakfast with Richard Lee and Patrick Christys.
Welcome, Love Sport Breakfast, Love Sport Radio. Myself, Richard Lee, Patrick Christys here with you for another hour or so. Let's touch on the headlines this morning. More Man United fallout. Let's try and unpick exactly why Solskjaer's record is so bad since he took the job permanently. We'll be doing that. We'll also be talking about Neil Black, UK Athletics Director, who may quit.
Just going to start with the main story of the day, actually, Rich, if that's all right. The TV fiasco has continued here at Love Sport Radio. For our listeners that don't know, we had a TV fitted in the office so we could watch the live sport. Unfortunately, it was fitted right behind the door, which swings open and therefore smashes the TV. We've managed to get a new television fitted, but the volume's on and won't turn off.
There we go, we've turned it off now.
Welcome to Love Sport, where it's like eating soup with a fork.
We have it on mute now, so we can crack on with the show. There you go. It looks good, though, doesn't it? We do have a new
fantastic.
TV.
There we go. He's fixed it.
There we go.
Done.
Thank you.
Good lad.
Thank you. It does look good, although it's not working.
No, not working now,
Not
is it?
working.
It's frozen.
It's frozen.
It's frozen. Good. We'll keep you updated on our TV progression throughout the show.
We will indeed. Something else that isn't working, Patrick.
Absolute state of that.
It's a lovely TV, if only it worked.
Okay, all right, go
something
on.
else that isn't working.
It's Ollie going to solve.
There you go. There we go.
All the
Nicely
Extinction
done.
Rebellion protesters.
We're going to start with Ollie.
Okay, right. Yeah, so Ollie is just a heavy... This is the thing. So you've seen... This is just plays out time and time again. Like you know when you've gone to see the same film 5 times? You know how it ends. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer at Manchester United. We've seen the fact that the board have backed him, which is basically like they've already started looking for another manager. And now all over the back pages, Ollie fears the axe. Now, It's a little bit strange, this one. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer fears that a heavy defeat in Manchester United's next game at home to bitter rivals Liverpool could put his side in jeopardy. But then it goes, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has described it as the perfect game for United after the international break. So nowhere in any of these stories, really, that I'm reading today, in the Times, in the Mail, in the Sun, is there a quote from Ole Gunnar Solskjaer saying, I fear that I'm going to get the sack. So where's this story come from?
No. It's all
but I'm sorry, but also, isn't it quite... unless I'm missing something here, this is quite bad journalism all round, because Solskjaer fears Liverpool route could cost job. Well, he's not said that.
No, he hasn't at all.
They're not even attempted to... There's not even a source says. A source says Ole Gunnar Solskjaer fears. There's not even that. So this is a bit weird, isn't it?
It is, bearing in mind, he hasn't actually said that quote. The story goes, by the way, the TV is still on. I just need to make this point that the volume is very much still on. We will get this sorted, so apologies if you can hear that in the background. It just likes to keep us on our toes. The thing is, and this is according to one of my made-up sources, was that apparently Solskjaer did walk into Ed Woodward's office. He was facing the other way in his chair. He turns around. He was stroking his cat. And he's made it very clear to Ole Gunnar Solskjaer that he is on his last legs and that he needs a result against Liverpool. That's what I've been told.
Yeah. Oh, hey, Ed, why are you sharpening those knives? No reason.
No reason. We're having a roast this weekend.
We're having a roast, exactly. Yes. Was that Zinedine Zidane? I just thought walking... No.
Just a ball guy. Just a regular ball guy.
Just a normal ball chap. So look, okay, sweepstake. United lose to Liverpool. Let's say 2-0. Does Solskjaer get the sack?
2-0, no. I think if it's an embarrassment, then there will be a lot of people calling for it. Do you know what? I don't know. It's a tricky one because I think, for me, they're in a transitional year. And I think this was decided upon very early on. And I think this will work in Solskjaer's favour, that it is very much a transitional year. So, with that being the case, what good would it do to sack him now and someone to come in now? Do they then... Look, I think the only reason he gets sacked is if they fear that they're going to get relegated. Which at the moment...
But surely you've got to let him just spend big in January and over the summer again. Like, United are not challenging for anything this year anyway. Realistically, they're not going to go down.
So there's a couple of things here as well. I think as long as they can see the improvement come the end of the season, then he'll be fine. I think that we spoke a lot this morning about reactive decisions where a small run can lead to a manager getting sacked, which often can be a little bit unfair based on the fact that if they've done a lot of positive over the time. Now, the problem Solskjaer has is that you can't necessarily see those signs of improvement. I think if I'm higher up at United, I'm looking at this whereby they need to recruit certain players. They need to change the strategy. Now, whether Solskjaer's there or not, they can do that. So the players they're bringing in, I don't think are necessarily Ole Gunnar Solskjaer players. I think they're Manchester United players. Daniel James, I don't think was necessarily an Ole Gunnar Solskjaer signing. I think that was a signing Manchester United as a club want to do. Same with Harry Maguire, same with Wan-Bissaka. So I think they continue their recruitment in the way that they do. In January, I think they'll bring in a couple of players. I'm pretty sure of that. Then next summer, I think they'll do the same again. They'll also move out several players to try and change that culture. But this was always going to be a transitional year. The key thing is that they can't get relegated, and they do need to make Europe. Whether that be the Europa League, they need to at least make the top 6.
Do you think something's going on with Pogba because he's been sent off to Dubai supposedly for a bit of warm weather training? Now, I can't help but feel like actually he's quite a negative influence around Old Trafford, that maybe they just want to palm him off a little bit, and actually he's angling for a move in January anyway. And so you might as well farm him out somewhere in Dubai for a bit, essentially make up a bit of an injury, and then, that's that. He's out the door.
I mean, of course, a lot of speculation in the summer. It sounds like it might have been close at one point, potentially, for him moving on. Look, players go abroad all the time, and I think naturally you put 2 and 2 together when you see this, and you'll come up with what you come up with. But I think certainly knowing, even at Watford, even at Brentford, from time to time, players would be sent abroad to go and get a change of scenery more than anything. Now, I don't think that Pogba necessarily needs that change of scenery, but of course, when United have the kind of funds they have, to send a player to Dubai to do a few days training is nothing to them.
With respect, nobody goes to Dubai for the scenery.
No.
Do you know what I mean? You go, oh, yeah, look at the scenery in Dubai.
Well, the weather is obviously a key point.
Yeah.
So, look, Pogba will go away for a few days, and it might freshen up the place a little bit, having him away. It might freshen up him as well. Like, look at it from Pogba's point of view, and I don't think we do this enough, where it's very easy to criticise him, where he has put in under par performers. But we can't forget that he is a World Cup winner.
Yeah.
He is an exceptional player.
If you're Paul Pogba's agent, you tell him if you keep playing for this team week in, week out, your stock is dropping because he's going to end up playing, not affecting games, because he isn't affecting games, and he's just in a losing side. So it's better for him to not have any part of that Manchester United team at the moment. Go somewhere like Dubai, just chill out for a little bit, and then get his move in January.
I think the counter-argument will always be that he's won the World Cup. So I don't think his stock's ever going to drop that much.
Otamendi's won a World Cup.
I think a lot of people, that you look at Pogba, he has got absolutely everything in his game. You know, he is... If you were to draw a footballer, you would draw someone like Paul Pogba. And I think a lot of top teams will see that. And even if he's not necessarily performing at the moment, rightly or wrongly, they'll always believe that they can get the best out of him. So I don't think he'll ever have a problem in terms of interest. Whether he stays at United long term or not, again, that's going to be very much down to the powers that be. And it's going to be down to Paul Pogba, whether he wants to continue at Manchester United. I just think that the papers do tend to, because of maybe some of the ways that, some of the things he does and the way in which he is, they will find reasons to create stories. I do think that is the case with Paul Pogba. I don't think there's anything in this Dubai one. I think he's gone over there for a bit of warm weather training to get himself fully fit. Like, I've got no issue with that at all.
Yeah, so Mustafi's a World Cup winner as well. Simone Barone is a World Cup winner. Kleberson is a World Cup winner. You've got Jesus Navas as well. So just some unlikely World Cup winners, and I don't think that argument really holds water because, yeah, Paul Pogba was a World Cup winner, but if you go missing for a couple of seasons after that,
Okay, fine. I'll add to
Giroud
the World Cup.
won the World Cup and didn't have a shot on target throughout,
But
I think.
played an important role. Look, what I'll add to that is that, okay, Paul Pogba's World Cup, he's a key member of a World Cup winning squad. He was a key player in that tournament. You can't deny that. You can't deny as well that you look at Paul Pogba, there is something there, more than something there. When he's on his day, he is very, very good. It might have just been a coincidence at United when they did have that brilliant run when Solskjaer first came in. He was exceptional. He was scoring. He was setting up goals. You could see the energy that he was playing with. Now, the biggest criticism I have of Paul Pogba is that he isn't consistent. Yeah. There is an inconsistency there, and sometimes his body language is horrendous, which is why naturally a lot of pundits and a lot of newspapers will pick up on that, and they'll find reasons to create negative stories. You know, this Dubai trip isn't being seen as a positive thing. The fact that he sat on his bike, I know a couple of the headlines, on your bike. It's a you know, and it's so they're finding. So I think if you're Paul Pogba, there's a couple of things here. You're playing in a team that you're arguably too good for. Some people will disagree with me on this, but arguably you're too good for, and there is a good chance he'll want to leave if things don't improve. From Man United's point of view, you want players of the calibre of Pogba, but only when he's on his day, and at the moment he isn't.
Okay, all right. Well, that's interesting stuff, but there's a few bits and bobs going around about Gareth Southgate at the minute, and his bold vision for England and how he's led a footballing revolution there. So he's used 59 players since he became manager. Now, Marcus Rashford's bizarrely, in a way, made the most appearances with him with 31. And in terms of his top scorers, you've got Harry Kane, Raheem Sterling, Marcus Rashford, Jesse Lingard. So there's a bizarre thing, isn't there, which is that some players clearly play better in the English setup system than they do for their own club. And what a nice reversal that is. Because I was sick and tired, as I'm sure every football fan was, of watching these players like your Lampards, your Gerrards, your Rooneys, etc., 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 playing amazing stuff for their clubs in the Premier League against the best in the world in the Champions League, and then putting on an England shirt and looking like a younger brother, looking like a twin brother that we'd never met. And you know, now actually there's a switch, isn't there?
You're spot on. For a long period of time it was, and it was grinding out results against Moldova. You know, it was, and it felt like that. And we were trying to take positives from really mediocre performances, but it is a completely different culture. I know there's something in the Times in regards to Gerrard and Lampard, which we're going to touch on.
Yes, so they're saying one of these, about Henry Winter, who's chief football writer at the Times, he says one of these must manage England next. And to be honest with you, you kind of see it, I think, really. So it's between Lampard and Gerrard, as you've rightly said. Let's talk a little bit about just how good they are and the fact that it looked like they'd never met each other when they played together in England shirt. And James Corden's famous, footballing parody there, of course, was spot on actually. And they were obviously part of this golden generation, which was, I think, quite ironically named, really. But now they've turned themselves into top homegrown managers. And Gerrard, who's kept reporting for pro-licensed classes at St George's Park, he's rushing down from Glasgow and finishing the badge, and Lampard's now undertaking his final course there as well. And these are clearly two of the most successful homegrown British managers. So, Lampard's got Chelsea currently 5th, I think they are, aren't they, to a good start of the season there. And Gerrard currently top of the SPL. So, I think the future's quite bright, and both of them have a little bit more of a footballing identity, I suppose you could say, than Sam Allardyce. Although he did have a footballing identity, it's just that identity was absolutely pants.
It's a fair point. I think if we're going to carry on in the same mould, like Gareth Southgate, it is the breath of fresh air that we spoke about. If Gareth Southgate at some point makes his way back to the Premier League as a manager, which you could certainly see, and certainly now what he's done, you could see him going to a top 6 club.
That's a point, right? So, Gareth Southgate, prior to him being named as England manager, I don't think would have got a job. Probably would have got in at a lower level Championship club. Do you reckon?
Yes.
Where does he go now? Who could he go for now? Do you think?
I mean, he goes top 6.
Because this could be an interesting. Look, it's not going to happen because we're talking years down the line here. But if we're looking at a club like a Manchester United, for example, they could do with someone a little bit like a Gareth Southgate right now, because he has got that vision. He's clearly able to inspire a togetherness in a group of players who don't play together week in, week out. So what could he do if he was there every day?
Yeah. Well, look, and it might even be one. These are the kind of things where something like that, I don't think the timing is right, as you say. I think that Gareth Southgate's got a couple more major tournaments in him before he does something like that. But you're right. If it was right now and Gareth Southgate was available, would Manchester United look for a Gareth Southgate? And I think the answer could well be yes. Time is 16 minutes past 9.
Love sport.
You all right, mate?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah? Really? It's just there's a massive grizzly bear sitting on you. You sure you're okay?
Well, now that you mention it.
Sometimes we say we're fine when we're not. But with 1 in 4 experiencing a mental health problem, if your mate says he's fine, he might not be. Be in your mate's corner and ask twice. Time to change.
Hi, my name's Bob. I'm a retired civil servant from Durham. I used the advice that a spokesman said gave me to haggle with Sky to reduce my monthly payments from £86 per month to £43 per month, which was a saving of £774 over the 18-month contract. A nice little result, if I say so myself, but it was only due to a spokesman said on his brilliant advice that I was able to do a deal for the new contract.
With a spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
If you're in business, I bet you hate wasting money. We Do Taxi Tops can help you achieve minimum wastage on your advertising costs and maximum exposure. Our revolutionary taxi tops can target your potential customers in the right place at the right time, so your message has the greatest potential for making an impact. We Do Taxi Tops. Visit WEDOOH.com. We Do. The smarter, quicker way of advertising in London, supporting London businesses of all sizes.
Oh, it's okay. Let's face it, when your kids are ill, you'd do anything to help them feel better. But remember, antibiotics aren't always needed. You might not realise it, but taking antibiotics when you don't need them puts you and your family at risk of a longer and more severe illness. Help keep your family well. Always take your doctor's advice on antibiotics. Search NHS antibiotics. All better.
Monday is a truly awful way to spend 1/7 of your life, I guarantee it.
This is Love Sport.
Love Sport Breakfast, me, Richard Lee, Patrick Christys here with you until 10 a.m. We're now going to be speaking a little bit of rugby. We've actually got an actual meteorologist on the line, John Hammond, not like our fraud of a producer who pretends to be a meteorologist day in, day out when giving us the weather. We're going to be talking, of course, the Japan Super Typhoon. Morning, John.
Good morning, guys.
Good morning. Yeah, interested to get your thoughts on this. So a powerful super typhoon could hit the Rugby World Cup in Japan this weekend, with winds potentially reaching up to 149 miles per hour. Is this likely?
I think that is unlikely. It is intensifying at the moment. As you say, it's a super typhoon. It's hitting the end of the scale, so it's equivalent to, it will be equivalent to a Category 5 hurricane over the next, let's say, 24, 48 hours. But it's out in open water, doing no harm to anyone. Now, as it tracks its way northwards in the direction of Japan, it is going to weaken, and the computer model consensus suggests that by the time it approaches the southern coast of Japan, peak gusts will probably be under 100 miles an hour. Now, that's still very windy, potentially very damaging and disruptive. It's a moot point as to A, whether it makes landfall, and B, where it makes landfall. And, of course, that is very, very critical because Ireland and Wales are playing in Kyushu, and previous model indications were suggesting that it would make landfall somewhere in Kyushu, which is the southwestern island of Japan. The more recent model run suggesting it could well curve right and avoid Kyushu with a direct hit. Instead, make its way in the direction of Tokyo come Saturday night, Sunday morning, as a weakening feature, but still bringing some extremely wet and windy weather. Of course, England are playing on Saturday night as well, their time. So all to play for. It won't be 150 mile an hour winds which devastate Japan. I can be pretty confident about that, but I'm much less confident about exactly where it will make landfall and just how strong those peak winds will be by then.
Yeah, of course, Ireland face Samoa in the Kyushu city of Fukuoka on Saturday, where Joe Schmidt's men need a bonus point victory to seal a place in the quarterfinals. So Ireland potentially could be knocked out by a typhoon if it does slightly change course.
Yeah. On the flip side of that, of course, if it's just plain old wet and windy, that'll suit the Irish down to the ground, I would have thought. And similarly for all the home nations. I mean, this weekend, come what may, there's going to be some heavy rain around. So you could argue that suits the home sides. But I must stress, I mean, if you want to ring back later on this week, I'll have a much firmer idea. But at the moment, there's so much uncertainty with the computer models. The one thing I am confident about, we will not see the 150 mile an hour winds smashing into Japan, but it will get extremely wet and windy this weekend.
Are you not worried about a little bit of a Michael Fish moment here?
Always.
There will never be a typhoon in Fukuoka, and then you just see the helicopters coming in. You just see people being airlifted out.
Why should I worry? It never did his career any harm whatsoever.
True. It's very true.
It's true. Just quickly for our listeners, some breaking news actually. Barnsley head coach Daniel Stendhal will be leaving the club with immediate effect, which is a bit of a surprising one. We'll touch on this in more.
Heading to Old Trafford.
There you go. Maybe we'll get the rumour mill started. Back to the rugby. It does beg the question, why do we host sporting events and sporting tournaments in places with such extreme weather?
Well, there you go. You've asked me this question before. I think it has to be to do with schedules. They take a calculated risk, although this part of the world does occasionally get hit by typhoons. I guess they risk that they have a punt and think that it won't hit during the course of the month or so that the tournament is taking place. They just got unlucky. It is the peak. It is the peak of the typhoon season, just as it is the peak of the hurricane season in the Atlantic. So it was always going to be a risk. We'll see. We'll see come this weekend to what extent it has impacted on the Rugby World Cup. My hunch, guys, is that it probably won't impact that greatly. There will be some strong winds, some heavy rain, but severe devastation, major disruption, and a halt to the World Cup, I think that's unlikely.
Well, okay, fingers crossed. I mean, as well, like we are blessed in this country, aren't we? We talk a lot about like extreme weather. We're getting a beast from the east, but the reality is we have nothing, do we, compared to what a lot of nations have? And you can't just rule out tournaments because of bad weather. I think it kind of adds to the sense of drama a little bit.
I think you're right to some extent. I mean, we have a pussycat of a climate here, don't we?
Yeah.
We just get drizzle.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't. There's a limit to which you can sort of schedule big worldwide tournaments around the weather, because the weather, as we all know, is very fickle and very hit and miss. In an ideal world, you would not schedule a Rugby World Cup in Japan in October, but we don't live in an ideal world. Similarly, we spoke a year or so back about the cricketers playing in Sri Lanka in the peak of the wet season down there. It's down to scheduling, the fact that these teams and these professional players are playing flat out all year round, and you just have to shoehorn these tournaments in somewhere.
Somewhere they do get a lot of drizzle. Of course, Manchester. Somewhere it is drizzling at the moment over Manchester United. We know you're a big Man United fan. Has the time come for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer to move on?
Absolutely not. Since the great man left, the problem with United is they've lost their nerve and they panicked. They panicked with the appointment. Well, I would argue they should have given Moyes more time. They panicked. They put Van Gaal in, then they panicked, and then they put Jose in, I was never a fan of Jose being there in the first place. But again, it's this sort of very, very short-term view. I know, I understand the pressure that the board are on at Old Trafford, but it makes absolutely no sense to get rid of Ollie right now. Ollie inherited most of that squad, and he's got to weed out the players that don't want to be there or just are not up to it, and that process will take a year or two. So if there are any United fans out there, if you're old enough to remember the 70s, then this is nothing, and we've got to rebuild, and that will take years, and you have to give the manager time. There's plenty of money. It's not all about money. It's all about making the correct strategic decisions. I would argue the problem doesn't rest with the manager. The problem is further up in that organisation. I think Ed Woodward has been seen to make some dubious decisions in the last 5, 6, 7 years, and one would question why he is still there, frankly. Now, who makes the decisions to get rid of Ed Woodward? I guess that's the Glazers. So if fans want to sort of vent their anger, it shouldn't be at Ollie. It should be higher up the organisation.
Okay, so if you, in your job description as a meteorologist or weather expert, just give us your forecast for Manchester United going forward under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer.
Well, although we're heading into autumn, I expect that in the next fortnight, with United playing Liverpool in 10 days' time, we are going to have a remarkable heat wave of a weekend where the pretenders of Merseyside are going to get absolutely burnt, because actually, I'll tell you what, they've had some very, very dodgy results in the last 2 or 3 matches. They've been very lucky, last-minute winners, etc. And I think they're not actually in peak form at the moment, and I think they will come to Old Trafford thinking it's a walkover. And I am expecting a shock result at Old Trafford next Sunday week.
Good
Fantastic.
stuff.
John, appreciate you joining us. That's John Hammond there, actual meteorologist, not like our producer.
No, but it is an interesting thing, just going back to the rugby, actually, because we know that it is typhoon season in Japan, and they do have a lot of freak weather events. They have tsunamis and things like that. But I don't think that should detract from what the calibre of tournament that we're seeing over there, which is that everything's well attended. Even training games are getting 1,000 fans, not training games, training sessions are getting 1,000 fans. They're all buying into it. It just seems like a remarkably well-organised tournament there. And, look, Ireland face Samoa in Kyushu, city of Fukuoka on Saturday, where Joe Schmidt's men obviously need a bonus point victory. If they are going to get their place in the quarterfinals, it could be essentially rained off, typhooned off, I suppose would be the phrase there. But I am waiting for the day that Joe Schmidt does an Eric Cantona, because then you could literally use the headline, Schmidt has hit the fan.
Yeah, that's actually really clever.
Cheers, mate.
Yeah, I don't...
It's not.
It is quite
lazy.
clever. Well, no, because he has hit... No,
Just you wait and see what I've got lined up for Fukuoka, mate.
28 minutes past 9.
This is Love Sport.
You all right, mate?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah? Really? It's just, there's a massive grizzly bear sitting on you. You sure you're okay?
Well, now that you mention it...
Sometimes we say we're fine when we're not. But with 1 in 4 experiencing a mental health problem, if your mate says he's fine, he might not be. Be in your mate's corner and ask twice. Time to change.
Hello, I'm Tim from Bolsover. I'm a retired teacher. I was looking for a better electricity deal from my parents when I got an email from a spokesman said it was a fixed deal for 2 years, which was better for my parents, less for them to worry about. And when I had a look at the sums, I had to recheck because I couldn't quite believe it. They were going to save over £900 each year they were on that deal. Needless to say, we signed up pretty quickly.
With a spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
If you're in business, I bet you hate wasting money. We Do Taxi Tops can help you achieve minimum wastage on your advertising costs and maximum exposure. Our revolutionary taxi tops can target your potential customers in the right place at the right time, so your message has the greatest potential for making an impact. We Do Taxi Tops. Visit WEDOOH.com. We Do. The smarter, quicker way of advertising in London, supporting London businesses of all sizes.
Before you set off on a long journey, remember to check your vehicle. Are your tyres correctly inflated? And are the treads deep enough? Have you got enough fuel? Is your oil level right? Checking your vehicle doesn't take long, but can prevent a breakdown or accident, and save you money. So, before you set off on a long journey, check your tyres, fuel, and oil. Highways England, connecting the country.
This is Love Sport.
Love Sport Breakfast, me, Richard Lee, and Patrick Christys here with you for another half an hour or so. The brilliant Martin Bell is up next. Of course, we are back tomorrow at 6:30, but we do have a big half an hour. We've got a very special guest on the line now because a result that went underreported, in my opinion, at the weekend, largely because of what was happening with the likes of Spurs and Manchester United. But, of course, Aston Villa had a fantastic result, winning away at Norwich and scoring 5 goals in the process. Delighted to say we've got Johnny Gold, director of Aston Villa's Supporters Trust. Morning, Johnny.
Hello, Richard. How are you?
Yeah, good, thanks. Hope you're well too. Is that fair to say that it went underreported?
What, Aston Villa's progress or performance?
The performance, because I thought, I mean, look, there's a lot made of Norwich and they had that fantastic result against Man City. There is an argument now that Norwich maybe we're starting to see that early season momentum you get when you get promotion, we so often see it, maybe that's worn off now. But of course, look, both teams did get promoted last season. Norwich ahead of Aston Villa, yet there was a complete golfing class at the weekend.
Yeah, Norwich aren't as good as us. I'm going to be very, very frank about that. We are better prepared for the top flight. Now, with due respect to Norwich, they were the better side last season. They had a longer game plan in position. Daniel Farke had been there a couple of years. They stuck by him in the first season when things weren't going very well. They invested in him in the Championship, and they won the title. And by the way, they also won at our place on the last day of the season too. So respect is due to Norwich. We had 10 months of Dean Smith, okay? And in that was the most incredible last 3 months of the season. To put it in perspective, after 35 games of the Championship season, we were 24 points behind the leaders, who were Leeds United. So we came up as probably the second best team in the league, and our close season was pretty much as good as anyone's in Europe. And the development of the football club has been astounding. Our defeats at Arsenal and Spurs were plucky, they were toe-to-toe, and we ran out of stamina because it was noticeable, even at Crystal Palace, that our team was not as fit and as mobile. But boy, oh boy, against Norwich, we started to show we're acclimatising to the top flight. And we were second on Match of the Day. We're always, in the old days when we were rubbish, 3 and 4 seasons ago, we were sort of being played at midnight.
Yeah.
But now we're a much more attractive football team. Watch Aston Villa go.
It is funny, actually, isn't it? Looking back at some of the old Match of the Day running orders, and like you guys and Manchester City used to be kind of like notoriously last on Match of the Day, and then times have changed. As a United fan, I can guarantee times have changed. Not all for the better. Jack Grealish obviously scored on 49 minutes. There's a lot being made of Jack Grealish. What's your take on him? How important is he to this particular Villa side?
Jack is essential to Aston Villa, not just because he's got bags of talent, but he's the heart and soul of the football club. He is our local boy. He has deserved this second Premier League opportunity because people mustn't forget he was a teenage Premier League player playing alongside Delphin Benteke in the relegation years, so to speak. And, every Villa fan relates to him, loves him, and as if to complete the narrative, his great-great-grandfather played for Villa and won the FA Cup in 1905. This guy is extremely special, as is our manager, Dean Smith.
Yeah.
And Dean is another special individual because he's not the old boy, Holt End hero come back. He never played for us, but he loves the Villa, and he's earned his spurs to be our manager. So there's something very, very special going on. If I might say, a version of the Lisbon Lions of Celtic. We've got the two leaders who are Birmingham boys who understand the depth of feeling there is when we win a football match, and that makes a massive difference. So there's your answer about Jack.
Okay, just on Jack, clearly he is hot property at the moment, and as you rightly said, he does look, he's kind of interwoven into the fabric of Villa, isn't he? But how long do you expect to keep him there for? Would there be any kind of ill feeling if he did decide to go and, get his move at Spurs or United or somewhere like that?
listen, a move to Spurs is a move sideways. I mean, you get knocked for 7 at home to Bayern Munich and 3 at Brighton. You know, we're playing Brighton on Saturday. We'll beat them a bit afar. What would you do that for? What would you sit on a bench in North London for? What would you do that for? No, I mean, Jack is, you know, I'm not going to say he's going to be a one-man club player because, you know, things might go off the rails for him or for Villa or a new manager or something long into the future. But there would have to be a pretty big ambition and opportunity, a first-team opportunity at a major, major club. And I don't think there's anything in the Premier League that would be able to entice him away.
Well, just quickly, actually, sorry, just because you are actually talking to one who knows a thing or two about sitting on a bench in London. So Rich, why would you do that?
He'd be on the bench at Man City. You know, I mean, we signed a player who didn't even sit on the bench at Man City, a player who's outstanding called Douglas Luiz.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you sign for Manchester City, unless you're a central defender, you're not going to see the light of day. Where at Villa, not only is he adored and loved, but actually we've got half a chance of being somebody now. This is a beautiful, beautiful time to be an Aston Villa supporter. And the reason I'm so upbeat is I've had 10 years of silence and misery, okay? And it's a beautiful thing. And he's not even our best player anymore.
Yeah. Okay, do you know what? You make some great points, you do. And by the way, Douglas, what a goal that was at the weekend. But
he's done 2 like that.
Yeah,
He's done 2. He scored 2 identical. And by the way, who's our best player? Who is our best player?
Go on, tell me.
It's John McGinn.
Yeah, very good.
Oh,
He's our best
actually,
player.
yeah. So this is a little bit weird. I want your take on this, actually, because apparently Fergie, United, is, I don't know how much to believe this, is absolutely mad for John McGinn and is instructing everyone. These reports happened earlier on in the season, happening again now, about Fergie telling the scouts, you've got to go and sign this lad, you've got to go. Is he that good?
Yeah, Fergie knows his football. You know what I mean?
He does, doesn't he? It's not true what they say.
And not only does Fergie understand his football, but he understands a Scotsman as well. Do you know what I mean? There's something about John McGinn.
I can't understand a Scotsman, I'll be honest with you. Never understood a Scotsman. I was in Aberdeen the other weekend. There's only so many times you can ask, what?
Yeah.
After someone's spoken to you.
Johnny, I want to ask you this, though, because, I mean, look, you make some great points about Villa. You're obviously very passionate about Villa. Had they not have won at the weekend, they would have been second bottom right now. However, obviously 8 games in, 8 points. Is this a reasonable return? Are you pleased with the start of the season?
No, actually, because we surrendered 8 points from winning positions. And, you know, we can cry our eyes out drawing it home to Burnley, having been in the league twice. We ran out of puff on the first day at Spurs after winning for 74 minutes. At Arsenal, we were sort of lapsed in concentration against a very good technical side. Arsenal are a good side. You know, I'm not going to make any bones about it, but we were twice in the lead at whatever Highbury is called these days. The Emirates, the hemorrhoids, whatever it's called. I don't know what it's called.
It's not that.
By the way, Etihad. Do you know what Etihad is in English? You know, it's Arabic, of course.
Yeah.
What's Etihad in English? Do you know what it is?
No idea.
It means United. That's how
Really?
serious they are about investing in Manchester.
Wow.
Okay.
Oh, Johnny, I think they're coming for you. I can hear them in the background.
They basically heard.
Yeah.
They don't like those. They didn't like the H word.
No, just before they do come for you, one more word on Wesley. 2 goals in this particular game. Of course, the last strike you managed to pluck from the Belgian leagues. Benteke didn't do too badly for you. Can Wesley do even better?
Yes. I do a podcast with my fellow Villa Trust director, Howard Hodgson, and you know, he made the point very, very well that Benteke started slowly, and Angel started slowly, and Wesley started slowly. A lot of Villa fans, before Wesley popped his first couple of goals in at the beginning of the season, said we should have signed Neil Maupay because he's a Brentford player that Dean knew very well from the dressing room. But, you know, with all due respect to Neil Maupay, there's a ceiling in his ability to set alight Aston Villa. Okay, and I don't mean that in any disrespect, but we want to win the league. Okay, we want to.
Yeah.
Oh, Johnny, I think we've
the best. We have the best ownership that we could possibly have. Okay, and when you go out and have vision for football, right, you have to sign players who you invest in, right? And Wesley Moraes is a better player, I think, pound for pound, than other options that there were. And that is no disrespect to Mopé.
You made some good points. Johnny, really appreciate you joining us today. Great stuff. Johnny Gold there, director of Aston Villa's Supporters Trust. Of course, massive result for Aston Villa at the weekend. They do find themselves in 15th in the table as it stands.
Ambition, hasn't he? Flipping out.
He has.
Want to win the league.
Do you know what? And actually, what I would say, and this is an interesting season for Villa because they're a massive club. Let's not forget that. It wasn't that long ago that they were finishing second in the table. They are, in terms of fan base as well, I've got no doubt they're one of the top clubs. So I do feel that is now coming back. The style of football they're playing is good. Dean Smith is very good. You can feel a lot of positive things coming. Just very quickly, because we had some breaking news that Barnsley have parted company with their manager, which for me is an interesting one, given that they are second bottom in the Championship. But of course, they got promotion from League One last season. Out of all the managers that were due to get sacked, bearing in mind they did so well to get automatic promotion last season, he's done a brilliant job there. They are ahead of Stoke in the league as it stands. They're not dreadfully adrift. It just seems a bit of a surprising one from the outside. Maybe there's a bit more to it, but it seems a bit of a shock.
Yeah, actually. I mean, but most teams are ahead of Stoke, who, of course, still play in the 1970s. So, but yeah, no, it is a surprising one. But in the sense it isn't, because, they're all at the mercy, aren't they, of, whatever football club owner they are and however tin pot they decide to be.
Well, interested to get Kieran's thoughts on this, because it's actually a team that I followed quite closely last season, Barnsley, and they were excellent. It was a really competitive division, especially with Charlton chasing them in third, and of course Luton going on to win the league, but Barnsley were excellent. So for him to get sacked this early, only 8 games in, they did win the opening game against Fulham, if my memory serves me correctly. Obviously, it hasn't been brilliant since then, but it does seem a bit of a surprise.
Yeah, and my colleague Dom Betts of the Fulhamish podcast goes, I don't know how we lost to Barnsley. It was like one of those. It was a bit of a smash and grab. So I don't think they've set the world alight in any way, Barnsley, so far, and I think they're very ambitious there. Daniel Stendhal looked like he really cracked it in League One, and surely there should be some credit in the bank for someone like that. I don't know.
Yeah, I certainly think so. I think if you get promotion, you've been with the team for that period of time. Again, there might be things behind the scenes that we don't know about, but it just seems a strange one. You're only 8 games in. You've done so well to get yourself to the Championship. He was, as far as I'm aware, very popular amongst the Barnsley faithful. They haven't got a big budget. It's not that the expectations can be that big, but they have parted company with it.
It's such a competitive league, right? And you saw Villa in their promotion season. We just got off the phone with Johnny Gold there. They were mid-table.
Yep.
With 2 months left of the season. You can go on a run.
I mean, I think it's a shame, isn't it? Because they do regard being the Barnsley manager as one of the better jobs in football, not just because of its, the prestige of the club, but also because of its proximity to the Calypso Cove Water Park, Lock Park, of course, and to a much lesser extent, Monk Bretton Priory. So, it is a fantastic part of the world.
Well.
Yeah, it's a second only, really, to New York.
Have you just looked up Barnsley to do?
Barnsley tourist attraction, yeah. There's the Yorkshire Sculpture Park as well. So.
Well, there you go. I'm sure
I said that I come from near a place with the Hat Museum, the Stockport Hat Museum. Okay. So, can't really talk.
No, indeed. Well, look, I think you've just sold it to all those managers out there that are looking for a job. I'm sure there'll be plenty applying for
It's the only place, really, where a kebab shop with a 0 out of 5 food hygiene rating is seen like a badge of honour.
17 minutes to 10.
Giving your team a voice. Love Sport Radio.
You all right, mate?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah? Really? It's just, there's a massive grizzly bear sitting on you. You sure you're okay?
Well, now that you mention it.
Sometimes we say we're fine when we're not. But with 1 in 4 experiencing a mental health problem, if your mate says he's fine, he might not be. Be in your mate's corner and ask twice. Time to change.
Hi, I'm Marilyn from Oxfordshire. My current insurance company quoted £245.08 to reinsure. And a spokesman said, obtain me a price of £173.49 for the same cover. This was a fantastic saving for me. And next time my car insurance comes up for renewal, I will be going through a spokesman said. No doubt about that.
With a spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
If you're in business, I bet you hate wasting money. We Do Taxi Tops can help you achieve minimum wastage on your advertising costs and maximum exposure. Our revolutionary taxi tops can target your potential customers in the right place at the right time, so your message has the greatest potential for making an impact. We Do Taxi Tops. Visit WEDOOH.com. We Do the smarter, quicker way of advertising in London, supporting London businesses of all sizes.
If you fall asleep at the wheel, you'll put your life in danger, and the lives of others as well. Before you feel tired, pull off the road into a services or other safe area. Drink some strong coffee, and take a quick nap while the caffeine kicks in.
If you're having a nap, you've left your lights on, sir.
Right, cheers.
Think. Don't drive tired.
Wanna know how I change a light bulb? I hold the bulb and I wait for the world to revolve around me.
Love sport.
Love Sport Breakfast, me, Richard Lee, Patrick Christys, here with you for another 15 minutes or so. That's the excellent Martin Bell, who will be up next. And for the last 15 minutes, we are graced with the presence of producer Kieran.
Thank you so much. Where's my fanfare?
There.
Thank you.
No expense spared.
Never on this show. I want to talk a little bit about Chris Silverwood and his appointment as England head coach. As you know, I love my cricket, and I was slightly uninspired by this selection. I was looking forward to Gary Kirsten being in charge, but of course we've got Ashley Giles, who kind of is the epitome of a Brexit voter. We must have someone English in this position. So he's gone with Chris Silverwood, who, to be fair to him, if you look at the statistics as fast bowling coach, everyone's average, bar Craig Overton's, who only played a handful of test matches in that period, was under 30. Jofra Archer's is supremely good at 22 or something like that, and he's done some stellar work in his position as fast bowling coach. So it's time for him to step up a little bit. And there's an interview with Jamie Porter, England Lions, and Essex Seamer in the Times today. And it sounds like he's kind of, a very good person to have around the dressing room as a head coach. He says it's a very good appointment because he has a very clear vision for a team. That's one of the things that got us the championship title in 2017. Essex is not one of the bigger clubs, but he knew how to get the best out of the squad he had. So it sounds like, as Sam Morshead was telling us earlier, he can kind of make the sum of the parts bigger than what they are. So I'm really excited to see how people develop under him. And of course, this is a very transitional period because we have the likes of Jimmy Anderson and Stuart Broad on the verge of retirement. And that sort of period is always going to be tough for anyone to kind of fill because they are our two top wicket takers of all time and they're retiring at a similar phase. So that'll be a big job for Chris Silverwood because the ODI team, of course, is on top of the world. I don't know whether you think, Patrick, that might actually be a bigger challenge to try and maintain the success of the ODI team whilst inevitably tinkering with the testing.
No, I think we've done it now with the ODI team. I think that was the pinnacle, and I think you normally look in the football World Cup sense. None of us apart from Rich have ever lived through a World Cup victory.
Yeah, Rich.
So it's it's a once in a lifetime thing. We've done it. We focused on that. I am concerned that if we don't arrest the slide in our test team and address some of the issues that we've got there, especially at the top of the order, especially in replacing the quick bowlers, frankly finding a decent spinner. I know Talij is good, but we want a world beater. Then actually we might find ourselves so far off the pace that we just end up getting spanked by everyone. I can't help but feel as though we are a couple of iffy years away from the Sri Lanka Test match at home being a bit of a close one, and we don't want that. So yeah, I think the Test side needs to be our focus going forward. Actually, look, I think it's fair enough if Sky Silverwood is deemed to be the man for the job, but I think it's an odd thing that you would fly Gary Kirsten over. You would meet him, chat to him, look at his pedigree, and then just employ someone internally. I find that weird. I find that a bit bizarre because you know where Silverwood's been all these years. You've seen him work at close quarters. What is it? What? And you've still decided that he's better than Gary Kirsten? Really? I find that weird.
Was it Kirsten's to lose then? Was it maybe a case?
It does make you wonder, doesn't it? What's he said? What's happened?
Yeah.
But the noises that we were hearing in the press afterwards was Giles mightily impressed by Kirsten. So it's a strange one, really.
They would say that anyway, though, right? I guess it's kind of they wouldn't want to throw him under the bus.
Yeah. Giles disappointed in Kirsten. Maybe made like some of the classic job interview mistakes. Yeah. When you got sweaty palms and you shake them, and then they say, "What's your biggest fault?" Oh, I'm a bit of a perfectionist. You wheel out all those tired lines. Yeah. Have you ever had a job interview?
No.
Do you give job interviews?
Kind of. To be honest,
What's your tactic? What's your technique?
People that I've employed I've kind of known them already. In fact, I've known them all already. So, yeah, it's been a case of I've just got an idea or a feeling as to the right people for the right roles.
In sport, isn't that kind of a really big advantage? Like, Chris Silverwood clearly has got this job because he's been able to prove himself within the setup. I think it's often, Ashley Giles knows him well. He knows his personality, what he can bring. Gary Kirsten was probably a little bit more of a risky choice.
Yeah, I guess that's it. It's kind of, you think, what is it? What qualities do you need to fill a particular role? Which, I guess, what would those qualities be for this particular role?
No, I think what's happened is he's gone to the players. I suspect that he's had Joe Root and a few of the others get there. And look, Alistair Cook is among the England setup still in terms of an overarching sense. He clearly played for Essex, in which Silverton coached him. I just wonder if they've gone down that route. And actually, I don't think that's the right route to go down.
Because we could then bring this back to Ole Gunnar Solskjaer.
Yep.
It sounds like there was certain consultations with players before that decision was made as well.
Exactly. And I think this is it, because what I think that this England team needs now is a bit of a rocket, to be honest with you. They got let out of jail by Ben Stokes so many times this summer. And actually, he saved our blushes from what would have been several really embarrassing defeats. And you can't rely on him all the time. And the idea now that you could just get this, Essie's bowling coach, and he might already be an existing mate of some of the England setup. When Joe Root makes poor captaincy decisions, which frankly he's done numerous times, is this guy really going to stand up and tell him? Joe Root can turn around and go, "Well, I've achieved more in the game than you ever have, mate." Whereas Gary Kirsten, you go, "Well, actually knows a thing or two."
Well, Mike Atherton does tend to agree with that opinion, Patrick. And
if Mike Atherton agrees, I'll change my mind.
He says England needed a fresh voice and new ideas, not continuity. And sort of kind of goes through the personality traits of Silverwood, touching on some of the players that have played under him. But he does say media profile comes with the territory, and while not essential to making a success of the job, he may need some help in this area. Like Bayliss, Silverwood is not a sparky communicator. Don't expect an Eddie Jones type personality who will take charge of a room and try to shape the story. He shouldn't try and be something he's not. And provided the players know that he has their back, any shortcomings in this area will be readily forgiven. I think that's the problem in recent appointments for this England testing, because of the Peterson fallout, and it was so massive. And we've even had a KP documentary playing over the Ashes because it was so huge, and the story was just so big about a Twitter account being inside the dressing room mocking KP openly, and there was just a massive rift in the players. They are going for these sort of reserved people to be the figureheads because they don't want any sort of sparks or any controversy, and they're just looking to keep their heads down and, I don't know, be very English about it.
Yeah, I do worry that actually this is a bit of a plateau for England's test side. And although, look, people right at the top of English cricket and right at the top of most businesses, you're always looking for what's your progression, what's the future, what's the next thing. And maybe they just think test cricket is a bit dead and that one day international cricket is the one, and therefore they're going to prioritise that. Maybe that's the direction that they're going in.
Absolutely. I want to move on a little bit to football and England football. Now, Phil Neville is taking charge of the England women's team tonight against Portugal.
IFL.
And we made the point on yesterday's show, well, I believe Rich did, that he was more of a face in terms of improving the brand of women's football. And Phil's come out and said, I know it was going to be a struggle after the World Cup. But, it's been really disappointing. Defensively, they've looked shocking. And they lost to Brazil, who aren't like in the men's team. They're about 16th in the world, I think, in the women's game. And England were expected to beat them. Norway, who we beat 3-0 in the World Cup, we lost to. So it's looking a bit shaky for Phil.
It is. I suppose the thing is, at the moment for me, women's football's still very much on the up. The crowd was big for this one. It was at the Riverside, wasn't it? Best part of 30,000 there. So I suppose as much as he's under pressure, if he were to move on, I would suggest that they need to go for another big name And rightly or wrongly, not necessarily, and again, rightly or wrongly, it's not necessarily the best person for the job, but at the moment, because there is this massive growth phase that's going on, that needs to continue. So I just feel that whether it's Phil Neville or they get in another big name, they don't necessarily need to be the best manager.
Right, so this is weird, isn't it? That Sir Alex Ferguson, I think, do we agree, probably pound for pound, the best manager ever?
Do
you think so? Probably. But, look, Pep's up there now, but let's just say, hypothetically, we all agree that Sir Alex Ferguson was the best manager ever. Gary Neville played under him. Ryan Giggs played under him. Phil Neville played under him. Paul Scholes played under him. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer played under him. Roy Keane played under him. You could go on.
Steve Bruce.
Mark Hughes.
Yeah.
Koppel.
Yeah.
Terrible managers. Aren't they?
Brian Robson?
Brian Robson? Yeah, he's pants. I went to school with Brian Robson's son, right? We used to play football together, bang average. And one day he stood up in the politics lesson and walked out. The teacher went, where are you going, Robbo? He goes, oh, Dad's just been sacked. He asked me to come down to the pub and get smashed with him.
Amazing.
Fantastic.
No.
Brilliant. And he did, and the school didn't stand in his way because it's Robbo. But
that's a really interesting point, though, Patrick.
Because this is it. You've got this procession of people here who aren't good football managers, but have played under the best, and they've got a reputation. They've built their reputation as good footballers, don't get me wrong, but the idea that they would cut it in management is singularly based around the fact that they've played under Sir Alex Ferguson for that length of time, and none of them have been able to do it.
Do you know what? 3.5 hours of show, and he waits until the last minute to bring up a good point. Classic Christys.
Oh, classic Christys. But you've got to drop that bombshell, haven't you? You've got to entice people in.
It's like a good sitcom. It's going to get people coming back tomorrow,
That's
isn't it?
Leave it on a cliffhanger. But it is a fair point, and we would.
No, it's a good point.
I've come in the studio before, a month or so ago, and talked about like Bobby Robson's legacy, and like the sort of people he had under his wing, like Jose Mourinho and people like that. Why didn't Sir Alex Ferguson clearly didn't have that impact on people, and perhaps it was the sort of character he was. Bobby Robson was a lot more of an amiable guy. Sir Alex Ferguson probably didn't have that similar sort of relationship with other people, and perhaps that is why he hasn't sort of had the lasting legacy and sort of the framework around that Sir Bobby Robson has.
Or could it be that Sir Alex Ferguson's way is now outdated?
Potentially, yeah, but I think you would have picked up some adaptable things. But that's the issue. It's not just that. What they all say about Alex Ferguson, he's the most inspiring bloke, right? Ryan Giggs, there's footage online of his team talk when he's Manchester United manager. Dear me, I'd rather eat paint, let alone watch it dry, actually. Paul Scholes hasn't seen the most inspiring person. Phil Neville is like a rainy day.
Paul Ince was a manager for a period of time as well, wasn't he, if I remember rightly?
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. You actually think back. It's incredible, actually, the amount of players that have gone on into management. And Steve Bruce is still doing it at the highest level.
Hey!
So there you go. There is a success story. And in fact, we can hear from Steve Bruce on the success story that he is.
How are the lads?
Good weekend for Newcastle. As always, thank you for joining us. Do stay tuned. Martin Bell is coming up next. Thanks, producer Kieran. Thanks, Patrick. My name's Richard Lieb. And listeners love sport. 3 minutes to 10.
Love sport.
Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October. This means that travelling to the EU will change. You'll need to check online if your passport is valid for travel to Europe. If you're planning on driving, you'll need to check